at the RNC.
We're live now, y'all.
Welcome to UK.
Oh, hey.
Hello.
Hey, y'all.
Everyone excited for this?
This is our first time doing this, so please keep that in mind.
Be nice to us.
I'm just here to meddle in your election, as I said.
We're amateur foreign agents trying to.
The Asadis is here. No, I'm just kidding.
All right, so
I'm interfering on behalf of Assad's wife, actually.
Oh, I love Asma. Asma Al-Hassad. Beautiful.
Yeah.
You're doing the work. Mila, what flavor White Claw is that?
Grapefruit, the best flavor.
Nice. I have my lemonade in a rocks glass.
I'm drinking water.
Wow. The courage to go through.
You gotta stay hydrated.
No, I'll get a drink soon. I was drinking wine for quite a while, so.
We'll drink more water, you thirsty, dehydrated bitch.
Wow, this is hate language.
So I'm hateful. I'm
homophobic.
Maybe we should do some introductions real quick, y'all.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I'll go first. My name is Eric, and my co-host Fox is right down below.
Hello.
And we are the hosts of The Red Lettuce, and this is our first time doing this. So thank you all for being here, and we'll go over to Mila. Oh, we can't hear you.
Hello, Mila.
There we go.
Can you hear me?
There you go.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, my connection's not great right now for some reason. Hi, I'm Mila. I co-host Unacceptable and Huge if True, and I also go to school sometimes and have a Twitter. That's basically my whole personality. And I'm also not even American. I have like no stakes in this election. I'm just here for moral support.
And foreign interference.
And for interference, yeah. I figured, like the US has interfered in everyone else's elections, so like I'm just kind of leveling the playing field.
What was that?
With the demons from Canada. They were like,
the FBI hasn't that.
Let you intervene.
Link in the bottom left.
Yeah, who's the link in the bottom?
Oh, hi. I'm Sam. I'm the co-host of Twink Revolution podcast, and I'm the narrator and creator of the Gaylog Archipelago series, which is part of the Twink Rev brand. Yeah, that's it.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Anti-capitalist with a brand.
Hey, what?
I said we're anti-capitalists, but with a brand.
Yeah, well, I'm just a grifter of a brand, so there's a market. The gays want a Marxist to lead them, and that's us.
Yes, I need hammer and sickle butt plugs. I need hammer and sickle like handcuffs.
I already bought my shirt from like the revolutionary clothing brand. If you saw that on Twitter yesterday, with like the "No More Landlords" and a picture of Mao, and it's like, oh, this is made by sweatshops. This isn't revolutionary.
Yeah.
I hate that. Oh.
Here's my Sephora makeup. It's Karl Marx Red.
Let's go over our predictions before it starts. We have like a minute left. So, Mila, why don't you start us off with predictions for tonight? How do you think this is going to go?
Honestly, I think that Trump is probably a far better debater than Biden because I think he doesn't care as much, and so I
I wonder
definitely
how much speed they're going to be on.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Biden's gonna need it to stay awake for sure. So that front, I think they're gonna pretend to disagree on a lot of stuff that they technically would have the same policy on anyway. So
Yes.
foreign policy, for instance, it's gonna be a fight about who hates Cuba more, or like, who wants to the Middle East more. Trump might pay some lip service to some isolationism, maybe, and that's it. Yeah, Biden will probably collapse.
Yeah, Biden will definitely collapse.
He's actually been
probably
dead this
like
whole
foaming at
time.
the mouth the entire time.
Yeah.
Esperanza's waiting to be let in, by the way.
Oh, where is she? Oh, let me get her. For some reason, it's not letting me get down there.
I hate when that happens. What are you doing? Jim just fell in our table of flicker. Can I give my prediction? Is that okay?
Yeah, I'm trying to get Esperanza in, and I can't get to her. For some reason.
Jan, they need help. You're our tech expert.
I'm
Sorry, I was
a
just getting ready to getting ready to watch this debate.
Yeah.
Millennials are young boomers. How does this work?
What do you need?
Tell me, young twink. How do
We
we
need to let Esperanza in, but I can't. Like, it's weird. Like, I see her down there, but I can't get all the way down there to let her in. Like the.
Oh. That's weird. I don't know what it's doing. Oh wait. Try zooming out. Your browser might be like zoomed in. It does something weird.
Oh yeah, wait. Oh, there we go. So smart.
Thank you.
Hi, Esperanza.
Hey everyone, how are
Good
you?
evening.
Are we ready
Good,
for
how are
this
you?
spectacle?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Oh, are we?
I'm
Are
ready
we
for
ever?
the
What are your
spectacle.
predictions, Esperanza? Tell us what's going to happen.
But I just want to say the Twinks came prepared tonight. I see a bottle of Guinness and some
That's
other
just
things.
my personal stuff. Sam has his own stash next to him.
Yeah, I have a camelback full of vodka. No, I'm just kidding.
I love it. No, I think it's just going to be a spectacle, like this whole election.
I think Trump is going to claim he is the LGBT candidate. Like, I'm like 90% sure because Eric Trump went on Fox News
Yeah.
earlier today and said that they support him. I think that's going to be an issue they're going to bring up. And they're going to bring up Biden's horrible voting record on Don't Ask, Don't Tell and the
Yes.
Defense of Marriage Act. I think it's going to happen. I think it's going to happen.
I think
Totally
this.
happening. That's legit. Yeah. I support that.
I think this is going to be the moment that defines the promise of America. And
This-
actually, our proud nation, has survived 300 years of real challenges. And this fucking debate on this clown-ass stage is going to be the thing that makes all the difference.
Yeah.
So whether this experiment in democracy succeeds or fails, that's my prediction.
Oh my God.
Trump comes out. Actually, we're going to do socialism better than anyone else done it before. We're going to give everyone free abortions and just like blow everyone's minds. And everyone like, I don't know how to respond to any of this.
He's gonna go full. He's gonna go full tanky. Watch.
I love it.
Cool. That burns on us. It burns on the way down.
It'll be Melania Trump and like Trump.
Do you think they're going to mention QAnon or the Cuties movie?
They might. I feel like the QAnon's possible.
What are they just ripping off our podcast topics now
Yeah.
for debate?
They're definitely watching our shows for sure.
We're stealing our intellectual property and we should sue them.
Oh no, we all know the Trump campaign takes its pointers from Amy Therese. So
We're gonna name the debate "More Presidential Than You Can Handle," and we're gonna be like,
oh shit! So there's a behind the announcer shot here. If you can see this,
he's hot.
where you can just read the teleprompter before he does. I love this. Are we all on the C-SPAN live stream? The C-SPAN.
No, I have to get there.
Okay, well.
Wow, this man's.
Yeah, I'm watching the CBS in the corner. I've got it muted, of course.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the audio will pipe through as whenever Eric gives me the word.
Yeah.
I have a button.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, you ready for some audio?
It did start yet.
There's no people
he's
on stage
staring.
yet.
Good evening.
It's Chris Wallace
Education campus of Case Western Reserve University and the Cleveland Clinic. I'm Chris Wallace of Fox News, and I welcome you to the first of the 2020 presidential debate between President Donald J. Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden. This debate is sponsored by the Commission on Presidential Debates. The commission has designed the format, 6 roughly 15-minute segments with 2-minute answers from each candidate to the first question, then open discussion for the rest of each segment. Both campaigns have agreed to these rules. For the record, I decided the topics and the questions in each topic. I can assure you, none of the questions has been shared with the commission
Not
or
this
the
time.
two candidates. This debate is being conducted under health and safety protocols designed by the Cleveland Clinic,
Versus
which
Nest.
is serving as the health security advisor to the commission for all 4 debates. As a precaution, both campaigns have agreed the candidates will not shake hands at the beginning of tonight's debate.
Oh, they're not going to
The
shake.
audience here in the hall
Wow, what a
has promised
snub.
to remain
They're gonna make
silent.
out.
Our democracy's over. They don't shake hands. It's over.
So we, and more importantly, you, can focus on what the candidates have to say. No noise except right now, as we welcome the Republican nominee, President Trump, and
Biden.
the Democratic nominee,
Wow, he looks amazing.
Oh, he looked like he got the same kind of spray tan job as Trump.
Yeah.
Wait, why did Biden walk out already?
Oh, he forgot where he thought he was Trump.
I'm looking for the broomstick that's holding up Joe Biden.
Gentlemen, a lot of people have been waiting for this night, so let's get going. Our first subject is the Supreme Court. President Trump, you nominated Amy Coney Barrett over the weekend to succeed the late
Amy, who
Ruth
gives a
Bader
shit,
Ginsburg on
Barrett?
the court. You say the Constitution is clear about your obligation and the Senate's to consider a nominee to the court. Vice President Biden, you say that this is an effort by the president and Republicans to jam through an appointment and what you call an abuse of power. My first question to both of you tonight: why are you right in the argument you make and your opponent wrong? And where do you think a Justice Barrett would take the court? President Trump, in this first segment, you go first, 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chris. I will tell you very simply, we won the election.
Sick right now.
Elections have consequences. We have the Senate, we have the White House, and we have a phenomenal nominee, respected by all, top academic, good in every way, In fact,
Quick poll
some of her
on
biggest
screen. Anybody respect this
endorsers are
candidate?
very liberal people from Notre Dame and other
She's
places.
kinda high.
So I think she's going to be fantastic. We have plenty of time, even if we did it after the election itself. I have a lot of time after the election, as you know. So I think that she will be outstanding. She's going to be as good as anybody that has served on that court. We really feel that.
I'll see the trailer park
Professor
boys
at Notre Dame, highly respected by all. Says
I mean, that might be true.
That's probably
student he's ever
true.
had. He's been a professor for a long time at a great school. And we won the election, and therefore we have the right to choose her. And very few people knowingly would say otherwise. And by the way, the Democrats, they wouldn't even think about not doing it. If they had, the only difference is they'd try and do it faster.
That's a
There's no
lie.
way
They
they
would have
would
done
give it
nothing.
Yeah, they would've
They would have waited
They
till a
didn't
right
have
wing
the
person's in
election, so
office.
They were stopped. And probably that would happen.
Look at Joe. He looks like
Definitely would
he's
happen
in
reverse.
pain.
So we won the
He is
election, and
melting.
we have the
He's
right to
melting
do it.
on
answering.
stage.
He's like, where am I?
Same question to you, Vice President Biden. You have 2 minutes.
Well, first of all,
He's like, you're talking to me?
doing this and looking forward to this, Mr.
Thank you,
President.
Joe.
The American people have a right to have a say in who
Corn
the Supreme
pop.
Court nominee is, and that say occurs when they vote for a United States senators and when they vote for
United
the
States
President of the United
senators.
States.
That's
They're not gonna
article
get that
agreement
chance
up
now
front.
because we're in the middle of an election already.
What are you saying?
Election has already started.
Is he having a
Tens of
stroke?
thousands of people have already voted. And so the thing that should happen is we should wait. We should wait and see what the outcome of this election is, because that's the only way the American people get to express their view is by who they elect as president and who they elect as vice president. Now,
The
what's at
only
stake
way
here is the
people can
president's
share
made
their
it
view.
clear he wants to get rid of the Affordable
Never been
Care
on
Act.
Twitter, I see.
He's been running on that. He ran on that, and he's been governing on that. He's in the Supreme Court right now trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, which will strip 20 million people from having
such a bad
insurance,
speaker.
health insurance now.
Yeah.
If they
Just
goes
ghastly.
into court.
And you just enablism.
And he's not even
the
hot.
justice, and I have nothing. I'm not opposed to the justice. She seems like a very fine person,
Oh,
but she's written.
Well, there it is.
Right.
Civility.
She thinks that the Affordable Care Act is not constitutional. The other thing that's on the court, and if it's struck down, what happens? Women's rights are fundamentally changed. Once again, a woman could be held pay more money because she has a pre-existing condition of pregnancy. They were able to charge a woman more for the same exact procedure a man did.
what's the
And
procedure?
that ended
This is like
when
me when I
passed
try and
the Affordable
podcast
Care Act.
sober.
Yeah.
And there's 100 million people who have pre-existing conditions, and they'll be taken away as well.
They'll be
those
taken away? Is he going to
pre-existing
murder our
conditions,
uninsured
insurance
relatives?
companies don't love
Is he saying
So
pregnancy is a
it's just not appropriate
pre-existing
to do
condition?
this
Yeah, he
before
is.
this election. If he wins the election and the Senate
You're
is
always
Democrat or
pregnant.
Republican, then he goes forward. If not, we should wait until February. All right.
There aren't 100 million people with pre-existing conditions. As far as the say is concerned, the people already had their say. Okay, Justice Ginsburg said very
First
powerfully
interjection
at some
of Trump
point
against Trump.
10 years ago or so.
Man, I feel bad for you guys about the healthcare thing.
is elected for a period of time, but a president
Everyone
elected
come
for
here.
4 years. We're not elected for 3 years. I'm not elected for 3 years. So we have the Senate, we have a president.
He's elected to the next
During
election.
that period of time, we have an opening. I'm not elected for 3 years. I'm elected for 4 years.
The
And the
election's
100
already
million
started.
people, Joe, 100 million people is totally wrong. I don't know where you got that number. The bigger problem that you have is that you're going to extinguish 180 million people with their private health care.
The Democrat laugh. It's the
Well, you certainly
I
don't
shall not
yourself.
refute your point,
No,
but I'll do an
just-
affected
listen,
practice
We're now into-
laugh.
gentlemen, we're now into open discussion.
Open discussion.
Open discussion. Yes, I agree.
All right, there's a
Number
question.
one,
You know, you have a hot gay
knows
relative
that,
who's
what
single
I
and
propose.
Canadian. I need
What I
health
propose is
care.
that we expand
Good
Obamacare,
amount of my
and we
relatives
we
don't
do not
actually
wipe any. And one of
but
the
I
big
do
debates we
know
had with
gay
23
men
of my
who are
colleagues
single in
trying to win
Canada
the
that I
nomination that I won. We're saying that
I can talk
Biden
to
wanted
for
to
you.
allow people to have private
Tell me
insurance.
your type.
They can. They do. They will under my proposal.
It's not what you've said,
But
and it's not what
that
your
is-
party has said.
That is simply
Your party
a lie.
doesn't say it. Your party
is
wants to
simple.
go socialist
My
medicine.
party is me.
socialist
Right
healthcare.
now. I am
They're
the
going to
Democratic
dominate
Party.
you know that.
I am the Democratic Party right now. The platform.
I
of
am the
Democratic
law.
Party is what I, in fact, approved of. What I approved of. Now, here's the deal. The deal is that it's going to wipe out pre-existing conditions. And by the way, the 200
First
million,
interjection of
200,000 people
Biden
who have
against a
died
point
on
being
his
made by
watch,
Biden.
How many of those have survived? Well, there's 7 million people that contracted COVID. What does it mean for them going forward if you strike down the Affordable
Am
Care
I
Act?
having a
So you
stroke?
think
I
that
cannot understand what he is
200,000
saying.
Military people dying because you couldn't provide them proper health care in the military. So don't tell me.
Oh,
that.
burn!
Talk about
And if you were here, you
Burn!
could be 200. It would be 2 million people because you were very late on the draw. You
Late
didn't
on
want
the
me to.
draw.
Why are
ban
you laughing?
China,
You think 2
which
million
was
dead
heavily
troops is
infected.
funny,
You
Joe?
didn't want me to ban.
All right, gentlemen,
Which
no,
was heavily
Mr. President.
infected. You would have been
Mr.
much
President.
later.
Mr.
What is the
President,
topic of this
I'm talking
conversation?
about 2 million people.
You're not gonna be able
President,
to
as
shut
a
him up.
moderator, we are going to talk about COVID in the next segment, but
Oh,
go
thank
ahead.
goodness.
Let me finish. The point is that
I miss
President
Hillary.
also is opposed to Roe v. Wade. That's on the ballot as well in the court. And so
Is
that's also at stake right now. And so the election is all
You don't know it's on the ballot. Why is it on the ballot?
Because
Why is it
you
on the
said
ballot? It's not
you're-
on the ballot.
It's on the ballot in the
I
court.
don't think so.
In the court.
Whoa, what
nothing
the
happening
fuck?
there.
Donald,
It's on the
And you
ballot in the
don't know
court.
her
There's a
view
construction.
on Roe.
I
You know
don't
her
know.
view.
All right.
That was a good question
That's
for
how
Trump.
judicial review works.
We
Yeah.
got a lot to unpack here,
What the
gentlemen. We got a lot
fuck
of
do you
time,
mean?
so-
Was Trump's question to Biden there,
on
and he
healthcare,
failed to
and
answer.
then we'll come back to Roe v. Wade.
All right.
Mr. President, the Supreme Court will hear a case a week after the election in which the Trump administration, along with 18 state attorneys general, are seeking to overturn
That's right.
Obamacare, to end Obamacare. You have spent the last...
Because they
If-
want to
if
give
I-
good
if I-
health care.
If I may ask
Go
my
ahead.
question, sir.
Good. Health.
Over the last 4 years, you have promised to repeal and replace Obamacare, but you have never in these 4 years come up with a plan, a comprehensive plan
Yes,
to
I have.
replace Obamacare. Well,
I got rid of the individual mandate.
I'm going to give you an
Excuse me.
opportunity.
I got rid of the individual mandate, which was a
That is
big
not a
chunk of
comprehensive
Obamacare. That
plan.
is absolutely a big thing. That was the worst
I
part
didn't
of
ask you,
Obamacare.
sir.
Chris,
You're
that was the
debating him,
worst
not
part of
me.
Obamacare.
Let me ask my question.
Well, I'll ask Joe. The individual mandate was the most unpopular.
Oh, we're losing
aspect of
control here,
Obamacare.
people.
I got rid of it.
I'd like you
And
to,
we will
Mr.
protect people with
President, I'm the
pre-existing
moderator of this
conditions.
debate, and I would like you to let me...
I'm the moderator of this
and then I
debate.
can answer you.
Go ahead.
You, in the course of these 4 years, have never come up with a comprehensive plan to replace Obamacare. And just this last Thursday, you signed a largely symbolic executive order to protect people with pre-existing conditions 5 days before this debate. So my question, sir, is what is the Trump healthcare plan?
Fine. Well, first of all, I guess I'm debating you, not him, but surprised. Let me just tell you something, that there's nothing symbolic. I'm cutting drug prices. I'm going with favored nations, which no president has the courage to do because you're going against big pharma. Drug prices will be coming down 80 or 90%. You could have done it during your 47-year period in government, but you didn't do it. Nobody's done it. So we're cutting health care.
What about
All of the
pre-existing
things that
conditions?
we've done,
He has not cut
insulin. I
healthcare.
give you an example, insulin. It was destroying families, destroying people because I'm getting it for so cheap. It's like water. You want to know the truth. So cheap. Look at all of the drugs that what we're doing, prescription drug prices. We're going to allow our governors now to go to other countries to buy drugs
Okay.
because
When in
they
fact-
pay just a tiny
As
fraction.
I say,
of
this
what
is
we do.
open discussion.
No,
Let me
but
ask
this
you
is
about,
big-
you'll
this
be
is
happy,
big stuff.
sir. You'll be happy. I'm about to pick up on one of your points to ask the vice president, which is he points out that you would like to add a public option to Obamacare. And
Yes.
the argument that he makes and other Republicans make is that that is going to end private insurance.
It is
and
not.
well, if
I'm
I can
sorry.
ask you the question, it will
Not what your
end
party says, by the way.
it will end private insurance and create a government takeover of health care.
It does not. It's only for those people who are so poor they qualify for Medicaid. They can get that free in most states, except governors who want to deny people who are poor Medicaid. Anyone who qualifies for Medicare would, Medicaid would automatically be enrolled in the public option. The vast majority of the American people would still not be in that option. Number one.
So you
Number
agreed
two.
with Bernie
Number-
Sanders, who's
I
far
did-
left, on the manifesto,
when
we
you-
call it.
when
And that
manifest-
gives you socialized medicine.
Look, hey,
Are you
I'm
saying
not
you
going to
didn't
listen
agree?
to him. The fact of the matter is, I beat Bernie Sanders.
Not by much.
I beat him a whole hell of a lot. I'm
Not
here.
by
I'm here
much.
standing facing you. all day.
Pocahontas would have
Amazing.
left 2 days
I tell
early.
you.
You would have lost every primary.
All he knows how to
on
do is
Super
hurt.
Tuesday.
You're going to be so
Very
lucky.
Here's the deal. I got very lucky. I'm going to get very lucky tonight as well. And tonight I'm going to
Yeah.
make sure because here's the
But
deal.
he didn't beat
Here's the deal.
Bert, like he was
Fact is
losing.
that everything
He
he's
was
saying so
losing
far
until
is
they-
simply a lie.
Obama
I'm not here to
intervened,
call out a
actually,
lie.
meddled
Everybody
in the
knows
election.
he's a liar.
But you
I just
agreed.
want to
Hey,
make sure.
Joe, you're the liar.
I want to make sure.
Graduated last in your class, not first in your class.
I want to make
Mr.
sure.
President, can you let him finish, sir?
He doesn't know how to do that. He has,
You'd be
you know,
surprised.
you pick
You'd be surprised.
the
Go ahead,
wrong
Joe.
guy, the wrong
Talk,
night
Joe.
at the wrong time.
Listen, you agreed with
Here's the
Bernie
deal.
Sanders to the
whole
manifesto.
idea-
Now
Let
you're
him-
disavowing it.
There is no manifesto. Number
Please
one.
let him speak, Mr.
Number
President.
two.
You just lost the left.
Number two.
He just lost the left.
You agreed with Bernie.
When did he have the left? Is what I'm wondering.
Right.
Totally
Folks,
agreed
do you
to,
have
and
any
under that
idea
plan,
what
you have
this clown's
socialized,
doing?
They call it
Mr.
Do you
Mr.
have any
President.
do?
socialized medicine.
Mr.
Well, I
President,
tell you what, he is not for any help for people needing health care
Who is?
because because he in fact already has cost 10 million people their health care that they had from their employers because of his recession. Number one. Number two, there are 20 million people getting health care through Obamacare now that he wants to take it away. He won't ever look you in the eye and say that's what he wants to do. Take it away.
No, I want to give them better health care at a much lower price because
by the way,
Obamacare
he doesn't
is
know
no
how.
good.
He doesn't know how
I've
to do
already
that.
fixed it.
He has never
I've
offered
already
a plan.
fixed it to an extent.
He has never
Obamacare,
done a
as you
single
might
thing.
know, but probably don't.
Gentlemen, you
is
realize
no
if you're
good,
both
Joe.
speaking at the
It's no
same
good.
time,
And it's so,
let the president go ahead, sir.
Obamacare is no good. We made it better. And I had a choice to make very early on. We took away the individual mandate. We guarantee pre-existing conditions, but took away the individual mandate. Listen, this is the way it is. And that destroyed that. They shouldn't even call it Obamacare. Then I had a choice to make. Do I let my people run it really well or badly? If I run it badly, they'll probably blame him, but they'll blame me. But more importantly, I want to help people. Okay. I said, you got to run it so well.
That's what
and I just had a meeting with them. They said, the problem is no matter how well you run Obamacare, it's a disaster. It's too expensive.
Okay.
Premiums are too high, and it doesn't work. So we do want to get rid of it. Chris, we want to get rid of it.
I understand it, sir, but I have to give you roughly equal time.
Good.
Please let the vice president talk.
Good.
He has no plan for health care.
Of course we do.
He sends out wishful thinking. He has executive orders that have no power. He hasn't lowered drug costs for anybody. He's been promising a health care plan since he got elected. He has none, like almost everything else he talks about. He does not have a plan. He doesn't have a plan. And the fact is, this man doesn't know what he's talking about.
All right. I have one final question for you,
Sure.
Mr. Vice President. If Senate Republicans, we were talking originally about the Supreme Court here, if Senate Republicans go ahead and confirm Justice Barrett, there has been talk about ending the filibuster or even packing the court, adding to the 9 justices there. You call this a distraction by the president, but in fact, it wasn't brought up by the president. It was brought up by some of your Democratic colleagues in the Congress. So my question to you is, you have refused in the past to talk about it. Are you willing to tell the American people tonight whether or not you will support either ending the filibuster or packing the court?
Whatever position I take in that, that'll become the issue. The issue is the American people should speak. You should go out and vote. You're in voting now. Vote and let your senators know how strongly you feel.
If I wanted to end the filibuster, I would simply vote.
In fact, let people know, your senators. I'm not going to answer the question
Why would you answer that
because
question?
the question is,
radical left.
Will you shut up, man?
Listen, who is on your list, Joe?
This is
Gentlemen, I think
this
we've
is
ended
so
This is like seeing 2 old female people at a old folks
What
home
you see when
arguing.
you go to the old folks' home.
Old folks home.
I hate Trump, but he's like
The people understand.
definitely the winner so far.
47 years, you've done nothing.
All right. The second subject is COVID-19, which is an awfully serious
Democrat
subject.
laugh.
So
Fake news.
let's try to be serious about it.
Laughing
We have
during
had more than 7
COVID.
million cases of coronavirus in the United States, and more than 200,000 people have died. Even after we produce a vaccine, experts say that it could be months or even years before we come back to anything approaching normal. My question for both of you is, based on what you have said and done so far and what you have said you would do starting in 2021, why should the American people trust you more than your opponent to deal with this public health crisis going forward? In this case, the question goes to you first, sir. 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Good luck. 200,000 dead. As you said, over 7 million infected in the United States. We, in fact, have 4% of the world's population, 20% of the deaths. 40,000 people a day are contracting COVID. In addition to that, about between 750 and 1,000 people a day are dying. When he was presented with that number, he said, it is what it is. Well, it is what it is because you are who you are. That's why it is. The president has
Dr.
no
Seuss.
plan. He hasn't laid out anything. He knew all the way back in February how serious this crisis was. He knew it was a deadly disease. What did he do? He's on tape as acknowledging he knew it. He said he didn't tell us or give people a warning of it because he didn't want to panic the American people. You don't panic. He panicked. In addition to that, what did he do? He went in and we were insisting that the Chinese, the people we had on the ground in China should be able to go to Wuhan and determine for themselves how dangerous this was.
Why does
He
Biden
did
always look
not
like he's
even
smelling
ask Xi
something
to do
bad?
that.
Well, he's
He told
trying to
us
remember what he's
great
trying to
job
say.
She was
He's
doing.
trying to keep his
That
faith
we
up.
owe him a debt of gratitude
But the
for
word
being
falling off of his mouth.
transparent with us. And what did he do then? He then
All he can smell
he
is toast. and
waited
he's
and waited and waited. He
bothering
still
him.
doesn't have a plan. I laid out
Sir,
back
it's
in
his 2
March
minutes.
exactly
so
what we
wrong.
should be doing. And I laid out again in July what we should be doing. We should be providing all the protective gear possible. We should be providing the money the House has passed in order to be able to go out and get people the help they need to keep their businesses open schools. It costs a lot of money. You should get out of your bunker and get out of the sand trap and get in your golf course and go in the Oval Office and bring together the Democrats and
Is this
Republicans
from the bunker?
and fund
Flubbed-
what needs
flubbed the
to be
rehearsed
done now
line.
to save lives.
So if
Wait,
we
wait,
would have listened to
You have 2 minutes, sir.
if we would have listened to you, the country would have been left wide open. Millions of people would have died, not 200,000. And one person is too much. It's China's fault. It should have never happened. They
There we
stopped
go.
from going in, but it was China's fault. And by the way, when you talk about numbers, you don't know how many people died in China. You don't know how many people died in Russia. You don't know how many people died in India. They don't exactly give you a straight count, just so you understand.
Oh my
But
God.
if you look at what we've done, I closed it and you said he's xenophobic. He's a racist and he's xenophobic.
That is true.
Because you didn't
They
think
did
we
say
had to
that.
close our country.
Wait
Wait a minute.
It's his 2 minutes.
You didn't think we should have closed our country because you thought it was terrible. You wouldn't have closed it for another 2 months. By my doing it early, in fact, Dr. Fauci said, President Trump saved thousands of lives. Many of your Democrat governors said, President Trump did a phenomenal job. We worked with the governor. Oh, really? Go take a look. The governors said I did a phenomenal job. Most of them said that. In fact, people that would not be necessarily on my side said that. President Trump did a phenomenal job. We did. We got the gowns. We got the masks. We made the ventilators. You wouldn't have made ventilators. And now we're weeks away from a vaccine. We're doing therapeutics already. Fewer people are dying when they get sick. Far fewer people are dying. We've done a great job. The only thing I haven't done a good job, and that's because of the fake news. No matter what you say, they give you bad press on it. It's just fake
Oh,
news.
he's just reeling up the hits here. It's the greatest hits.
Bad press, because that's the way it is, unfortunately. But let me just tell you something. I don't care. I've gotten used to it. But I'll tell you, Joe, you could never have done the job that we did. You don't have it in your blood. You could have never done that job.
I know how to do the job. I know how to get the job
Well, you didn't do
done.
very
And
well.
I know
in
where I
swine
am.
flu. H1N1, you were a disaster. Your own chief of staff said you were a
14,000
disaster.
14,000 people died, not 200,000. There was
A
no
very-
economic recession.
Sir, you made a
There was-
Far
there
less
was no
lethal
recession.
disease,
you made a
by the way.
point. Let him answer.
And there was no one, we didn't shut down the economy. This is his economy he's shut down. The reason it's shut down is because
We're mad they
look,
shut down the
you
economy.
folks at home, how many of you got up this morning and
Democrats.
had an empty chair at the kitchen table because someone died of COVID? How many of you were in a situation where you lost your mom or dad and you couldn't even speak to them? You had a nurse holding a phone up so you could, in fact, say goodbye.
You would have lost far
How
more
many
people.
people?
Far
That is-
more people.
And
You would have been
And by the way,
months late.
your own
You were
his
months behind me,
his
Joe.
own CDC director says we could lose as many as another 200,000 people between now and the end of the year. And he held up. He said, if we just wear a mask, we say
You know, it's so
those
funny that
numbers.
they
Just-
keep
just a
blaming
mask.
each
And
other
by the way,
and
in
each
terms
other's
of
parties for all
whole
the
notion
deaths.
of a
But
vaccine,
under
push for a
capitalism,
vaccine, but
this
we
would
don't
have
trust him
happened
right.
anyway.
I know you
There's no policy that would have
Scientists.
completely
Right.
prevented
Right.
it.
Right.
Johnson, Pfizer.
And
Okay,
by the way,
gentlemen,
and
gentlemen, let me move on to questions about the future because you both have touched on two of the questions I'm going to ask. Focusing on the future first, President Trump, you have repeatedly either contradicted or been at odds with some of your government's own top scientists. The week before last, the head of the Centers for Disease Control, Dr. Redfield, said it would be summer before the vaccine would become generally available to the public. You said that he was confused and mistaken. Those were your two words.
Yeah.
But
What is he talking about?
Dr.
Biden?
Slaoui, the head of your Operation Warp Speed, has said exactly the same thing. Are they both wrong?
Well, I've spoken to the companies and we can have it a lot sooner. It's a very political thing because people like this would rather make it political than save lives. It is a very political thing.
He's a fucking purge face. He's like,
I've spoken to all of the people that you have to speak to. We have great Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, and others. They can go faster than that by a lot. Become very political because the left, or I don't know if I call them
you're
left, I don't know
suggesting
what
that
I call
the
them.
head of your operation.
Oh, the hat tip to the Twink Res listeners in the family.
yeah.
I don't know if we can call them left.
But it could also be much
I feel personally.
He talked about the summer, sir, before it's generally available. Just
As
like
he
Dr.
said, it's a
Redfield.
possibility that we'll have the answer before November 1st. It could
I'm
also be
talking about
after
when it's
that.
generally available.
It-
not when
well,
it will
we're
be.
going to deliver it right away. We have the military all set up logistically. They're all set up. We have our military that delivers soldiers, and they can do 200,000 a day. They're going to be
This is
delivering
the
the
same
vaccine.
man
It's
who
all
told
set
you
up.
by Easter this would be gone away. By the warm weather, it'd be gone. Miraculous. Like
Pretty
America.
fucked up that we have to like call in the military to administer health care.
Right.
Like normal country.
That was Jim.
Yeah. Meanwhile, like
So
Cuba
here's
sends
the deal.
doctors everywhere.
This man is talking about a vaccine. Every serious company is talking about maybe having a vaccine done by the end of the year, but the distribution of that vaccine will not occur until sometime beginning or the middle of next year to get it out, if we get the vaccine. And pray God we will. Pray God we will.
Mr. Vice President, I want to pick up though.
You'll have
on
the
that.
vaccine
I
sooner
want to
than
pick
that.
up on this question though. You say the public,
China and Russia are going to beat you.
scientists, but they can't trust President Trump. In fact, you said that again tonight. Your running mate, Senator Harris, goes further, saying the public health experts, quote, will be muzzled, will be suppressed. Given the fact that polls already show
And she'll put the muzzles on herself.
concerned about the vaccine and are reluctant to take it,
I hate you.
are you and your running mate, Senator Harris, contributing to that fear?
No more than the question you just asked him. You pointed out. He puts pressure and disagrees with his own scientists.
But you're saying
Everybody
you can't.
knows-
The guy wrote The Art of the Deal. What do you expect?
Oh, well, no. You can't trust the scientists. She didn't say that. You can't trust
She said the public health
Did say
experts,
that.
quote, will be muzzled, will be
Yes.
suppressed.
Well, that's what he's going to try to do. But there's millions of scientists, there's thousands of scientists out there, like here at this great hospital, that don't work for him.
Is this
Their job
SNL?
doesn't depend on him. That's not. They're the people. And by
I
the way,
spoke to the
and Fauci,
scientists that are in
by
charge.
the way,
They will have
and
the vaccine very soon.
does-
Let-
But by the way, believe for a moment what he's telling you in light of all the lies he's told you about the whole issue relating to COVID. He still hasn't even acknowledged that he knew this was happening, knew how dangerous it was going to be back in February, and he didn't even tell you. He's on record as saying it. He panicked or he just looked at the stock market, one of the two, because guess what? A lot of people died. And a lot more are going to die unless he gets a lot smarter, a lot quicker.
So-
Mr. President?
Did you use the word smart? So you said you went to Delaware State, but you forgot the name of your college. Either the lowest or almost the lowest.
Oh
in your-
my God.
Use the word smart with me.
This is
Don't use that
amazing.
word.
Oh, give me a break.
There
Because
he
you know what?
goes.
There's nothing smart about you, Joe. 47 years you've done
Well,
nothing.
let's have this
Oh,
debate.
And if you would have
shit.
had, let me just tell you something, Joe.
No,
He
If you
lied
would have
about
had
that shit too. He lied about that.
what I was put through, I had to close the greatest economy in the history of our country. And by the way, now it's being built again.
See,
And it's
We're going
going
to get
up
to the
fast.
economy in the next segment, sir.
Okay.
It's going up fast.
Okay.
Look forward to
I-
it.
when it comes
He's
to
bullying the
virus has been revealed
the former
so
vice
far,
president of the U.S.
Two of you have taken very different approaches.
Help him,
Incredible.
Chris Wallace.
How the virus is handled going forward by whichever of you ends up becoming the next president. I want to quickly go through several of those. Reopenings. Vice President Biden, you have been much more reluctant than President Trump about reopening the economy and schools. Why, sir?
Because he doesn't have a plan. If I were running, I know what the plan is. You've got to provide these businesses the ability to have the money to be able to reopen with the PPE as well as with the sanitation they need. You have to
Tell
provide
that to
them
Nancy
plastic.
Pelosi.
Well, he's just shush for a minute.
Tell it
See,
to Nancy
you know,
Pelosi. And
and
Schumer,
by the
Brian
way,
Chuck.
Nancy Pelosi
Crying
and Schumer,
shock.
They have a plan. He won't even meet with them. The Republicans won't meet with him in the
Okay.
Senate. And he sits on his golf course. And I mean,
Nah.
literally,
Okay.
think about it.
You probably
All right,
play
think
more than
about
I
it.
do, Joe.
What about this question of reopenings and the fact
Well, he wants to shut down this country.
Whoever plays the
And
most
I wanna
golf
keep it
is the one I like.
The great thing by
Admitted
shutting
he'd
it
shut
down.
it down.
Wait a minute,
That's why I
Joe, let me shut
decided.
you down for a second.
Golf
Joe.
is the worst
Yeah.
sport.
It's not even a sport. I hate it when people call it a sport. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, you're
We need to take over all the golf courses.
Elderly people.
Everyone
Do
needs
it
to watch
back.
George Carlin spit on golf.
Very, very
Yes,
valuable. We learned
absolutely.
a lot. Young children aren't. Even
Was it
younger
Hemingway?
people aren't.
Was it
We've learned a
the
lot.
only
But he
real
wants to
sports
shut
or
it
bare
down.
knuckle boxing and
More
motor
people
racing?
will be
Everything
hurt
else is just
by
a game.
continuing. If you look at Pennsylvania, if you look at certain
I mean,
states,
both of them should be playing golf. They shouldn't be doing anything else but playing golf. Like, you know what people are at their age, and my family's dead. Like, they shouldn't be
I want
playing
to move on to
golf.
another
I've
subject.
got to
But
respond.
those states,
gentlemen, I
those
wanna move
states
on to
are
another
not
subject.
doing well that are shut down
Which is
right
gotta
now.
respond to that.
Once
President
they shut
Trump,
down the
you
whole
have
country.
begun to increasingly question the effectiveness of masks as a disease preventer. And in fact, recently you have cited the issue of waiters touching their masks and touching plates. Are you questioning
No, I think
the
masks
efficacy
are
of
okay.
of
You have to
masks?
understand, if you look, I mean, I have a mask right here. I put
This is
in
elder
Ooh,
abuse.
a
when I
prop.
think I need it. Tonight, as an example, everybody's had a test and you've had social distancing and all of the things that you have to, but I
Just
wear
like your
masks
rallies.
when needed. When needed, I wear masks.
Okay, let me ask.
I don't wear masks like him. Every time you see him, he's got a mask. He could be speaking 200 feet away from it. He shows up with the biggest mask I've ever seen. I will say
Vice President Biden, go ahead, sir.
Look, the way to open businesses is give them the wherewithal.
King
to
shit.
build it. We provided money. The
But
Congress.
I was asking you, sir, about masks.
Well, masks make a big difference. His own head of the CDC said if we just wore masks between now, everybody wore masks and social distance between now and January, we'd probably save up to 100,000 lives. It matters.
And they've also
It
said the
matters.
opposite. They've
And
also said
no serious person said the opposite.
They've
No
also said, well, look
serious.
at,
All right, I
look
wanna
at
ask
Dr.
you-
Fauci. Dr. Fauci said the
He
opposite.
did not
I
say
want to
the
ask you, we
opposite.
got a
said
little
very
bit more than a
strongly.
minute left.
He
in the
did.
debate.
Dr. Fauci did lie about masks.
Then he changed
Yeah.
his mind. He said mask good.
I
I'm
wanna
okay
ask-
with masks.
I
I'm
want to
not
ask you
fighting
both about
masks.
one last subject, because your different approaches has even affected the way that you have campaigned. President Trump, you're holding large rallies with crowds packed together, thousands of people. Outside, yes, sir, agreed. Vice President Biden, you are holding much smaller events with
Because nobody will show up.
people with.
Nobody shows up to his rallies.
All right. In any case, why are you holding the
That's
big
an
rally?
amazing
Why
one.
do you not?
Yeah.
You go first, sir.
Because people want to hear what I have to say. I mean,
But are you
I've
not
done a
worried
great
about it
job
spreading
as a
disease?
president, and I'll have 35,000 people show up at airports. We use airports.
Are you
and
not worried
hangars,
about
and we
the
have a
disease
lot of
issues,
people.
sir?
Well, so far we have had no problem whatsoever. It's outside. That's a big difference, according to the experts. And we do them outside. We have tremendous crowds, as you see. I mean, and literally on 24 hours notice. And Joe does the circles and has 3 people someplace.
Okay.
By the way, did you see
Go ahead, sir.
one of the last big rallies he had? And a reporter came up to him to ask him a question. He said, no, stand back. Put on your mask. Put on a mask.
What good social distancing?
I'm way far away from those other people. That's what he said. I'm going to be okay. He's not worried about
Guys,
you.
I'm sorry, but American politics is so
You had no
stupid.
negative.
This is baby
ours
shit.
is stupid too, but like, wow.
This is, I don't even know how this is even a debate. This is just old men yelling at each other.
It reminds me of like an argument you would see in like an old folks home or
Like in Trailer Park Boys or something.
Wearing masks, basically encourage them not to.
All right.
Ben, he's a fool on this.
If you could get the crowds, you would have done the same thing. But you can't. Nobody cares.
Gentlemen, can we move on to the
Nobody cares.
gentlemen?
This is like Phil
Yeah.
Collins
The economy
and Sam the Caveman in Trailer Park Boys on stage
Back.
arguing with each other.
Down.
That's
with Canada.
This is what that is.
It's like when Leahy and Sam Wasco ran against
Federal
each
Reserve
other.
says that growth, which is going to be there, is not going to be nearly as big as they had expected. President Trump, you say we are in a V-shaped recovery. Vice President Biden, you say it's more of a K-shape. What difference
What the fuck's
does
a
that
K-shape?
mean to the American people in terms of the
Am I
economy?
dissociating right now?
Ketamine.
I think
That's
we
what they're on.
Yeah, they're on-
We closed it down because of the China plague. When the plague came in, we closed it
China
down, which
plague.
was very hard psychologically to do. He didn't
just-
think we should close it down. And he
These
was wrong.
writers.
And again, 2 million people would be dead now instead of still 204,000 people is too much. One person is too much. Should have never happened from China. But what happened is
Should have never
Now
happened.
we're reopening, and we're doing record business. We had 10.4 million people in a 4-month period that we've put back into the workforce. That's a record the likes of which nobody's
You
ever
always need
seen
to, like,
before.
if you
And he
don't
will
bash
close
China
down-
once a
he will
day,
shut it
then like
down
you
again.
can't make
He will
it in
destroy this
American
country.
politics.
You know, a lot of between drugs and alcohol and depression. When you start shutting it down, you take a look at what's happening at some of your Democrat-run states where they have these tough shutdowns. And I'm telling you,
He
it's
is right.
because
I am
they
struggling
don't
with
wanna
drugs
open
and
it. One of them came
alcohol,
out last
depression
week,
in a
so bad.
Democrat-controlled
We're
state.
going to
Shut
open up
down.
on November 9th. November 9th because
We
it's
have a
Joe
Democrat.
Biden invented
hurting us
depression.
by keeping
Yeah,
them closed.
depression's
They're
not
hurting
real.
people.
I'm just
People
kidding.
know what to do. They can
Oh.
social distance. They can wash the
That's-
hands. They can wear
Read,
masks.
everyone read Mark
Whatever they want.
Fisher
But they got to open these states up.
and my article.
North Carolina,
Yeah, it's our
These
material
are-
conditions.
Pennsylvania, Michigan, and a couple of others. You got to open these states up. It's not fair. You're talking about almost it's like being in prison. And you look at what's going on with divorce. Look at what's going on with alcoholism and drugs. It's a very, very sad thing. And he'll close down the whole
Alcoholism.
country. He'll close down the whole country and destroy our country. Our country is coming back incredibly well, setting records as it does it. We don't need somebody to come in and say, let's shut it down.
All right. Your 2 minutes, sir. We're now moved to you. As I said, posing the question, the president says it's a V-shaped recovery. You say it's a K-shaped recovery. What's the difference?
Doesn't make any sense.
Millionaires and billionaires like him in the middle of the COVID crisis.
Oh, so he is a billionaire.
Another
Wow. Flip-flopping Joe.
made another $300 billion because of his profligate tax proposal and no focus on the market.
And who wrote those fucking tax laws? Bro?
No.
All the small town.
You had power for 8 years, Joe.
Who's been in the
This guy
Senate for
paid
118 years, Joe?
Sir, wait, no, sir, it's just, yeah, I understand. You've agreed to the 2 minutes, so please let him have it.
Do I get my time back? The fact is that he is, in fact,
We're
working
claiming
on
his
this in a
time.
way that he's going to be the first president of the United
And
States
yet he
to
persisted.
leave office, having fewer jobs in his administration than when he became president. Fewer jobs than when he became president. First one in American history. Secondly, the people who have lost their jobs are those people who have been on the front lines, those people who have been saving our lives, those people who have been out there dying, people who've been putting themselves in the way to make sure that we could all try to make it. And the idea
Prison
that he is
firefighters?
insisting that we go forward and
The
open
Democratic state of California.
Yeah, the,
Yeah.
the
You mean
Kamala
concentration
workforce.
camps? The concentration camps?
cases in the United States of America.
We don't have prisoners here. They deserve to be
Why
there.
does he want to open it
Oh,
up?
I'm
You have
sorry.
to, you have to call them gulags.
Our gulags.
Otherwise,
It's our
people will take
gulags.
it seriously.
COVID crisis.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he has no
Our
intention of
gulags.
doing anything about making it better.
You just
for
need
you
to
all
assign a
that-
foreign name to them, and then it'll
School.
work out.
Why are schools open? Because it costs a lot of money to open them safely.
That's the K-shaped recovery. It's
his
Kamala's
administration
reserve army of prison labor just going out and
couldn't do that because
injecting everybody with the COVID vaccine.
Yeah.
national emergency. They've done nothing to help small businesses. Nothing. They're closing. 1 in 6 is now gone. He ought to get on the job and take care of the needs of the
No,
American
get on the
people
dick,
so we
Joe.
can
That's the
open
run.
All
safely.
right, time is up, sir. We are going to get
Isn't
to
it?
Like he's
Yeah.
like he needs to do the job for the people, but Joe would like never pass
So
the
the people want their schools. No, people want their schools open. They don't want to be shut down.
Remember in like
They
one
want
of the
their
primary debates where Joe Biden just started talking about gay bathhouses?
Yeah.
Okay, I had
So
no
uncomfortable, but I
idea
loved it.
what those were.
They want to get back to
Like,
that.
I didn't-
I hope he talks about it again.
Safe.
But they want their schools open.
Okay.
People want
I'm the one.
I had a terrible
By the way, I did
experience at a
Big Ten
bathhouse.
football.
No.
Let's hear about it.
I'm very happy to do it. And
All right.
people
All
in
I'm gonna
Ohio,
say is that I had a weave and it melted
get
off
to-
with the client.
With
the client who took me to a bathhouse, and I was just like, never again.
There's a new report that in 2016, the year you
Oh
were
my
elected
God.
president, and 2017,
Oh my God.
the first year as president,
I
That's
also had a bad
legendary.
experience at a bathhouse.
I didn't drink to that one.
in federal.
I had to
income
sit in a
tax.
steam room
Those
next
years.
to like an elderly Uruguayan man who was eating a ham sandwich inside of the sauna.
Question. Did you prove that you paid $700
So gross.
in federal income
The
tax?
smell of the tax
I
returns.
paid millions of dollars in taxes, millions of dollars of income tax. And let me just tell you, There was a story in one of the papers.
Show us your tax
I paid
return.
I hate that
$38.
Warren and
I paid 27
Bernie
million.
supporters are all calling for like a wealth tax,
Proceeded.
as if it's like the ultimate solution to everything that's happening in America.
Yeah.
18 pages.
Like
All
you
you
didn't
have to do, you
Yeah.
just have to change the price.
Totally under leveraged because the assets are extremely good, and we have a I built
Sir,
a great
I'm asking you a
company.
specific question, which
But
is.
let me tell you.
I understand all of that.
Release your
I
tax
understand
return.
all of that.
But
I'm
let me-
no, Mr. President.
Go ahead.
To show
I'm
your
asking
dick.
you a question. Will you tell us
I don't
how
see
much
any
you
of it.
paid in federal income taxes in 2016 and 2017?
Millions of dollars.
You paid millions of dollars.
Millions of dollars.
So
yes.
not 750.
Millions of dollars, and you'll get to see it. And you'll get to
When?
see it. But let me just
Inshallah?
tell you, Chris, let me just tell you something that
Did he say
with
inshallah?
tax
Yeah, that's what I
laws,
thought he
I
said.
don't want to pay tax. Before I came here, I was a private developer. I was a private business people. Like every other private person, unless they're stupid, they go through the laws, and that's what it is. He passed the tax bill that gave us all these privileges for depreciation and for tax credits. We build a building and we get tax credits
my
like a
God.
hotel.
What a
in
king.
Pennsylvania.
Pays.
Which, by the way,
Stop the lie.
me
There
by
it is.
the Obama administration, if you can believe that.
Yeah.
Now the man got fired
No.
right after that happened, but
Vice
that's
President Biden, you want to respond?
Yeah, I do want to respond. Look, the tax code
Inshallah.
put him in a position that he pays less tax than a school teacher on the money a school teacher makes is because of him he says he's smart because he can take advantage of the tax code. And he does take advantage of the tax code. That's why I'm going to eliminate the Trump tax cuts. And I'm going to eliminate those tax
Okay.
cuts.
What
And
about the
make
Obama
sure that we
ones?
invest in the people who in fact need the help.
No,
People
see, tax cuts are good when a
You used to
lib
do
does
it in the
it,
last
but
25
it's
years.
bad
You
when
were president- do it over
Because
the
you
last
weren't
25
president
years. No,
screwing
no,
things
no.
up.
You were a senator. And
You're
by
the
the way,
worst
you were a
president
vice-
America has ever had.
Hey,
Come
Joe,
on.
let me just say,
Wow.
I've done more in 47 months. I've done more than you've done
Obama was pretty bad.
in 7 years, Joe.
Wow.
We've done things that you never
Obama was
even
pretty
thought of
bad.
doing,
Okay,
including
gentlemen.
fixing the broken military that you gave me, including taking care of
We're
your
talking,
vets.
Mr. President, we're talking about the economy. I'd like to ask you about your plans going forward.
Wow,
Because
that's
Mr. Vice President,
economism.
your economic plan,
Just think you can't.
if you
that
were
the
to be
economy can be
elected president,
separable like that.
focuses a lot on big government, big taxes, big spending. I want to
Donald Trump
What is
resigned.
big government?
You propose
Big
more than
dicks.
$4 billion
How
of
big
additional
exactly?
taxes
Yeah, big,
on individuals making more than $400,000 a year
blocking you.
and on corporations. President Trump says that kind of an increase in taxes is going to hurt the economy as it's just coming out of a recession.
Well, just take a look at what is the
look what I
analysis
did in my
done by
last
Wall
8
Street
years. We
firms.
cut taxes.
Points
So
out that my economic plan would create 7 million more jobs than his.
Boost the military budget, like you said.
Yeah.
Number two, it would create an additional $1 trillion in economic growth because it would be about buying American. That we're going to make this federal government spend
Sounds fash.
$600 billion a year on everything from ships to steel to buildings and the like.
to warships,
And under
to
my proposal,
warplanes,
we're gonna make sure
Missiles,
that
nuclear
every
weapons.
penny of that has to be
It's just funny because this is never going to happen under imperialism.
right?
Oh no, we'll buy plenty of nuclear
significant number of
weapons.
taxes. the corporate
And then
tax
we'll give them to the Saudis.
21%. You have 91 companies, in the Fortune 500 who don't pay a single
19
penny
or
tax, making
91
billions of
companies,
dollars.
countries in the
Billions of
Fortune
dollars.
5. What a
Because
sentence.
Oh my God.
Because you, in fact, passed that.
Yes.
That was
That's right.
your
I got
tax
it.
proposal.
I got it done. And you know what
Yeah,
happened?
you got it done.
Our economy boomed
And,
like it's never
someone
boomed.
does need to do that.
President,
Let me
wait, no,
finish.
Absolutely.
President, let me pick up on that. You would continue your free market approach, lower taxes, more deregulation, correct?
Not lower taxes for American people.
What other approaches there?
But in Obama's, you talk about the economy booming. It turns out that in Obama's final 3 years as president, more jobs were created, 1.5 million more jobs than in the first 3 years of your presidency.
They were all shitty.
Recovery.
Yeah, what kind of jobs were they?
1929.
Part-time,
Oh, yeah.
precarious,
Yeah.
minimum
When Obama-
wage.
Over
Almost
something that was
Obama
down here. All you had to do was turn on the lights and you pick up a light. But then the slowest economic recovery since 1929. Let me tell you about the stock market. When the stock market goes up,
Like, wow, a million people started
401k.
driving Uber in the
You
last 2
guys-
years. on the presidency. What an
You want to
achievement.
terminate my
It's
tax?
why there's so
Created
many-
No
OnlyFans
benefits.
jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Half
no
of the
benefits.
companies that have poured in here.
It's why there's so many podcasts now,
Companies that are
because
already
no one
in
has
the
jobs
large other
anymore.
places.
We're all
Leave,
podcasters.
and you will have an impression. The last-
Patreon and OnlyFans jobs.
Period.
Right, and the reason why there's like millions of them is because like people are taking up more than one job.
American history.
Yeah.
I was asked to bring it back. We were able to have an economic recovery that created the jobs you're talking about.
Yeah.
We handed him a booming
McDonald's.
economy. He blew it.
It wasn't
He blew it.
booming.
He
It
blew it.
wasn't
Yeah.
booming. It was the weakest recovery
Well, sir, is it
since
fair to wait? Is it fair
1929.
to say he blew it when, in
When
fact, it was
COVID came in.
when there was record
Vanilla Coke habit. Yep.
before COVID?
Yeah, but because what he
Vanilla
did
Coke habit.
before COVID,
What about cocaine?
manufacturing went in the hole. Manufacturing.
Vanilla cocaine said it.
Number one.
Mm.
Wait,
Number two.
Manufacturing. Hold on.
they said it would take. No, you were number two.
No.
Chris. They said it would
This
take
guy
a
is
miracle to bring back manufacturing. I brought back 700,000 jobs. They brought back nothing. They gave up on manufacturing.
We
Part
did
of my
not bring
standard fare.
I'm the guy
He
that brought
totally
back
gave
the
up on
automobile industry.
manufacturing.
All right, let him.
We brought back, I was asked to bring back Chrysler and General Motors. We brought them back right here in the state of Ohio and Michigan. He blew it. They're gone. He blew it. And in fact, they're going.
Ohio had the best year it's ever had last year. Michigan had the best year they've ever had.
That is not
Many
true.
car companies came in from Germany, from Japan, went to Michigan.
Yeah, we nationalized a car company and then gave it the fuck away.
Yeah.
So they could like just outsource all the fucking jobs and bust the
Very
union.
little.
Like great fucking job.
They're the same way. He talks about these great.
For the rich.
He talks about the art of the deal. China's perfected the art of the steal. We have a higher deficit with China now than we did before. We have the highest trade deficit
China
with
ate
Mexico.
your lunch. Down
All right, gentlemen,
18%. China ate your lunch, Joe. And no wonder your son goes in and he takes out billions of dollars, to manage. He makes millions of dollars.
Going after children. Going after children.
Why is it, just out of curiosity, the mayor of Moscow's wife gave your son $3.5 million? What did he do to deserve it? What did he do with Burisma
Doing
to
it.
deserve
None
$183,000?
of that is true.
They're
Going
both
after the
just speaking
children.
the truth about each other.
Mr. President,
It's
Mr.
totally,
President, please.
totally
ask a question.
discredited. Totally discredited. And by the way,
Well, wait, he
let's
didn't get
talk-
$3.5 million, Joe?
Mr. Vice,
He got
Mr.
$3.5 million.
President,
that is not true.
Oh, really?
Mr.
Oh,
President,
But, Mr.
it's an open discussion, please.
Now,
It's a fact.
Well, raise an issue. President, answer.
Discredited.
Facts don't care about your moderation.
$83,000 with no experience in energy.
Mr.
Look,
no
President,
job.
My son did nothing wrong at Burisma.
I think he
and
did.
Mr.
The only guy
President,
that
let
did
him
something-
answer.
He doesn't want to let me answer because he knows I have the truth. His position has been totally, thoroughly
By
discredited.
who?
And
The
Ukraine.
media.
By everybody. Well, by the
By the
media,
media,
by our
because they refuse to
allies, by
talk
the
about it
World
because they're
Bank,
embarrassed.
by everyone has discredited. Matter of fact,
Mr.
even the people
President,
who
please stop.
testified under oath.
So let me
Under
ask you
oath.
this,
Under-
Joe.
under
No,
oath.
go ahead, Mr. I'm listening to
Even the
you.
people under,
$3.5
he
million from
testified-
Moscow.
he testified under
He's
oath
just
to the
leaving
administration,
gaps
said,
for Trump
"I
to
did
interject
my
in
job,
now.
and I did it very
Yeah.
well.
Oh,
I
really?
did it
I'd like to know who
honorably."
they are.
Well, I'll give you the list
I'll
of the
fire
people who
them.
testified.
No, go ahead, sir.
Sure, you've already fired most of them because they did a
Some
good
because
job.
Some people don't
Well,
do a good
here's
job. With you,
Go
they
ahead.
say
You
they're
get
here's
the,
the
wait
deal.
a minute. You get the final word, Mr.
Well, it's hard to get any word in with this clown. Excuse me. This
Well, what are you going to do when you're debating against our enemies?
Yeah.
that is simply
Why did he
Showing
deserve
weakness.
$3.5 million
It
from
did-
Moscow?
look. Here's the deal. We want to talk about families and ethics. I don't want to do that. I mean, his family we could talk about all night.
Well, we
His
know why you
family's
want to do that,
family-
No, no,
Joe.
let him go.
My family lost a fortune by
Go ahead.
coming down and helping
Go
us
ahead.
with
Go ahead,
government.
sir.
And that's
Every-
such a
they're right
that's
here.
a-
Mr.
that's
President.
such a
Every
great.
single one of them lost
This
a
is not
fortune
about
President.
my
coming and
family or
helping
his
us with
family. It's
government.
about your family,
They
the
didn't
American
collect
people.
$3.5 million.
This is elder abuse, I'm telling you. This is
This is the first good pivot Biden
What
has made.
you need.
What we're not seeing is like his.
Your family.
It's about
We're seeing
you.
Biden seem
That's
of like a
what I'm
cattle
talking
prod.
about.
You feel like,
The segment, we're moving on.
It didn't take.
My fail son is better than your fail son.
yeah,
He stood up.
my
No,
son's a
the
gay and yours
answer to the
isn't.
question is no.
He's just a crack addict.
No, I-
$1 million if you
That
don't
is
if
you're- you know what, you're-
absolutely not
stop.
true.
you're
You're-
doing it.
You're going to
Not
have,
true.
gentlemen, I hate to raise my voice.
Children.
It seems to be, why should I be different than the two of you? So here's the
That's a
deal.
good point.
We have 6 segments.
What a
We've
suck up.
ended that
Fucking
segment.
teacher's
We're
pet
going
shit.
to go to the next segment.
I agree, yeah.
You each are going to have 2 uninterrupted moments. In those 2 uninterrupted minutes, Mr. President, you can say anything you want. I'm going to ask a question about race, but if you want to answer about something else, go ahead. But I think that
He's like, I'm going to bring in the race war. I'll do it.
with fewer interruptions. I'm appealing to you, sir, to do that.
Well, and him too.
Well, frankly, you've been doing more interrupting.
I think that's all they've prepared for is the race question.
Sir, less than less than you have.
With their neat little talking points.
The issue of race. Vice President Biden, you say that President Trump's response to the violence in Charlottesville 3 years ago, when he talked about very fine people on both sides, was what directly led you to launch this run for president.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah, that's
President.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I've often said that you believe you have done more for Black Americans than any president, with the possible exception of Abraham Lincoln. My question
And the people who ain't black, man.
No, that's a terrible example.
rather than your opponent, to deal with the race issues facing this country over the next 4 years. Vice President Biden, you go first.
It's about
Trump's
equity,
probably pissed.
equality. It's
Get to
about
go first.
decency. It's about the Constitution. And we have never walked away from trying to require equity for everyone, equality for the whole of America. But we've never accomplished it. But we've never.
We're here for the
walked away from
capitalist
what
class.
He has done. It's true. The reason I got in the races when those people, close your eyes. Remember what those people look like coming out of the fields carrying torches.
They're just trying to remember what the people look like. It's his constant experience of life.
Anti-Semitic bile and accompanied by the Ku Klux Klan. A young woman got killed. And they asked the president what he thought. He said there were very fine people on both sides. No president's ever said anything like that.
Did it say very fine people?
I'm sorry. Obama said that during DAPL. Obama said, let's see the sides play out. That's what he said during DAPL. And then,
White House. What did he do? You walk across to a church and hold up a Bible. And then what happened after that?
Yeah,
The bishop
Obama
of
said that
very
about DAPL as
church
like his
said
own
it was
daughter
disgrace.
was at like the
The general who
protest
was
getting
with him
hosed
said,
down. Like,
"We
what a
all
fucking
need- all
cunt."
everyone wants to do is divide, unite people all." This is a president who has used
Wow.
everything as a dog whistle to try to generate racist hatred, racist
It's also
division.
just a
This
joke
man who, in
because
fact,
Biden
talk
wants
about
to
helping
criminalize
Americans.
Antifa, even though
in
Antifa was one of
1,000
the guys to not
Americans has been
not
killed
rally.
because of the coronavirus. And if he
Yeah,
doesn't,
a young woman was killed that I would have thrown in prison had she been alive.
I would have shot her in the leg.
I would have shot her in the leg. I wouldn't have run her over.
is a savior of African Americans. This man cares.
Kamala would have like
This
turned
man
the hose
done
on Heather
everything.
Heyer herself.
Look,
Like,
fact
no
is,
doubt
you
about
have
it.
to look at what he talks about. You have to look at what he did, and what he did has been disastrous for the African American community.
So,
President Trump, you have 2 minutes. Why should Americans trust you over your opponent to deal with
he
racism?
did a crime bill, 1994, where you call them super predators, African Americans, the super predators, and they've never forgotten it.
that was Hillary Clinton, but
No, sir, it's his 2 minutes.
So you did that. They call you super predator, and I'm letting people out of jail now that you have treated the African American population community, you have treated the black community about as bad as anybody in this country. You did the 1990, and that's why if you look at the polls, I'm doing better than any Republican has done in a long time because they saw what you did. You call them super predators, and you've called them worse than that. Because you look back at your testimony over the years, you've called them a lot worse than that. As far as the church is concerned, and as far as the generals are concerned, we just got the support of 250 military leaders and generals, total support. Law enforcement, almost every law enforcement group in the United States. I have Florida, I have Texas, I have Ohio, I have Portland. The sheriff just came out today and he said, I support President Trump. I don't think you have any law enforcement. You can't even say the word law enforcement because if you say those words, you're going to lose all of your radical left supporters. And why aren't you saying those words, Joe? Why don't you say the words law enforcement? Because you know what? If they called us in Portland, we would put out
why don't you say radical
They
Islam?
won't do it because they're run by radical left Democrats.
Yeah,
If you
radical
look at
left
Chicago,
supporters
if
is
you
so
look at
funny.
any
It's like,
place you want to look,
mean
Seattle.
like Bernie
They heard we were
supporters are
coming
the
in the
radical left?
following
You
day.
mean
and they
pussy
put up
hat
their hands
supporters?
and we got back Seattle.
Yeah, we're the pussy hat.
Minneapolis, we got
He's
it.
going to lose Vouch's
We
vote.
believe in law and order, but you don't. The top 10 cities and just about the top 40 cities are run by Democrats and in many cases radical left. And they've got you wrapped around their finger, Joe, to a point where you don't want to say anything about law and order. And I'll tell you what, the people of this country want and demand law and order, and you're afraid to even say it.
All right. I want to return to the question of race. Vice President Biden, after the grand jury in the Breonna Taylor case decided not to charge any of the police with homicide, you said it raises the question, quote, whether justice could be equally applied in America. Do you believe that there is a separate but unequal system of justice?
Vanilla Coke again.
In this country?
Yes, there's systemic injustice in this country, in education and work and in law enforcement and the way in which it's enforced. But look, the vast majority of police officers are good, decent, honorable men and women. They risk their lives every day to take care of us. But there are some bad apples.
They're class traders.
When they find them, they have to be
To
sorted
take care of the property class.
accountable. They have to be accountable.
To maintain status quo.
The President of the United States is called
Right, and to throw people in prison
together
so that
an
the state
entire
and
group of
corporations
people
can
at the White
profit.
House. Well, everything
Can't
from
believe
civil
we're
rights
talking about Kamala like that.
Chief,
I know.
we're going to work this out. So we change the way in which we have.
Well,
more
who's going to make our
transparency
Victoria's Secret
when these
bras
things
if not
happen. These
prisoners?
cops aren't happy.
Right. And then who's going to lock up, people for truancy?
These
Yeah.
cops aren't happy.
We're going to get our firefighters.
Breonna Taylor.
Right. Firefighters. How are we going to get our
We
slave
have
labor?
to have a system
Right.
where people are held accountable.
No, you just need to point the finger at China. It's all good.
China has more prisoners than us.
Peaceful
Doesn't
protest
true,
is.
but-
Violence is never appropriate.
What is peaceful protest? When they run through the middle of the town
President Trump-
and burn down your
President Trump,
stores and kill people all
President
over
Trump,
the place,
that
and you
is
say
not
peaceful
peaceful
protest?
President
No,
Trump,
it's
I'm not
not, but
asking-
you
Yeah,
say it is.
that's
President
peaceful.
Trump, I'd like to continue with the
Yes,
issue
go
of
ahead,
race. I
please.
promise we're going to get to the issue of law and order
Please.
in a moment.
Fine.
This month, your administration directed federal agencies to end racial sensitivity training that addresses white privilege or critical
Oh my
race theory.
God.
Why did you decide to do that, to end racial sensitivity
This is a
training?
kind of like
And
let them
do
fight.
you
for
believe
you.
that there is systemic racism in this country, sir?
Did you
I
read
ended it
White
because it's
Fragility?
racist. I ended it.
Yeah.
A lot of people were complaining that they were asked to do things that were absolutely.
If we made cops read White Fragility, like
Radical
police violence would go up.
revolution that was taking place in our military,
Totally.
in our schools, all over the place, and you know it, and so does everybody
what
else.
is radical,
and he would know.
What is
Oh, it was
radical
totally
about
racist.
racial sensitivity training, sir?
If you were a certain person, you had no status in life. It was sort of a reversal. And if you look at the people, we were paying people hundreds of thousands of dollars to teach very bad ideas and frankly, very sick ideas. And really, they were teaching people to hate our country. And I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to allow that to happen. We have to go back to the core values of this country. They were teaching people that our country is a horrible place. It's a racist place. And they were teaching people to hate our country. And I'm not going to allow that.
Vice President Biden.
Nobody's doing that. He's
Oh,
the racist.
You just don't.
Here's the deal. I know a lot more about
He's
that.
racist. I locked up millions of black
Fact is
people.
that-
Like,
Racial insensitivity. People have to be made aware of what other people feel like, what insults them, what
they feel like as you strangle them to death in your role as a police officer.
we gotta know how it feels to lock them up and be deprived of
It
freedoms.
makes a gigantic difference in the way. a child-
Right, and did you hear where he's like, what insults them? It's like, this is the liberal idea of racism, that it's just about like insensitive insults and not
Yeah.
about like centuries of like material
Right.
oppression.
Like me, and
It's all about the attitude. We gotta change attitudes, but not the power, not the power structure.
they look down on
We
people
gotta
for a different
prohibit the
color.
thoughts in your
It's like,
heads
we're
versus
all
like
Americans.
the
only way
material
we're gonna bring
reality
this
of
country
what's
together is bring
killing
people
people.
together. There's nothing
Mhm.
we cannot
Like-
do if we do it together.
It's like classism, like being impolite to poor people as you're taking all of their wealth.
Yeah.
Administration, there was tremendous division. There was hatred. You look at Ferguson, you look at You go to many places. Look at Oakland. Look what happened in Oakland. Look what happened in Baltimore. Look what happened. Frankly, it was more violent than what I'm even seeing now.
Oh, my
but the
Lord.
reason is that the Democrats that run these cities don't want to talk like you about law and order.
Violent
and you
crime,
still haven't mentioned.
Violent
Are you
crime.
in favor of law and order?
I'm in favor of law. You follow.
Are you in favor of law and order? Go
Yes,
ahead.
I'm in favor.
Also, nothing happened in Oakland. Literally nothing.
That's dead.
I literally wrote the crime bill.
Fairly.
I wrote the damn bill.
15% in our administration.
All right.
It's gone up on his watch.
Went down much more
he
in
had-
ours.
All right, we're now.
is president of
Mr.
the
President,
United
you're going
States of America.
We
Mr.
were
President,
breaking every record in the
Mr.
book.
President, you're going to be very happy because
And the
we're now going to
places
talk about law and order.
Places we had trouble were Democratic-run cities.
That's
and
exactly my question.
Democratic-
There has been a dramatic increase in homicides in America this summer, particularly, and you often
I wonder
blame that on
why. What's been
Democratic
going on in the
mayors
world?
and Democratic governors, but in fact, there have been
Certainly not capitalism.
equivalent
There's no
spikes
pandemic that's
in
destroying
Republican-led
everyone's
cities like
livelihood.
Fort Worth. So the question is this really a party issue?
No.
I think it's a party issue. You can bring in a couple of examples, but if you look at Chicago, what's going on in Chicago, where 53 people were shot and 8 died. Shot. If you look at New York, where it's going up like nobody's ever seen anything, the numbers are going up 100, 150, 200% crime. It is crazy what's going on. And he doesn't want to say law and order because he can't, because he'll lose his radical left supporters. And once he does that,
Anarcho-Bidenists.
if he
Vouch.
ever got and they ran it the way he would want to run it, we would have,
They do this
It was like Vouch and Mehdi Hassan, and that's it.
and you would see problems like
He would know a suburb unless he took the wrong turn.
Oh, I know suburbs.
He would not. I was raised,
Go ahead. Wait a minute.
I was raised in the suburbs. This is not 1950. All these dog whistles and racism don't work anymore. Suburbs are by and large integrated.
He would know.
Many
Oh my
people
God, no, they're
driving
not.
Their kids to
That's
soccer
bullshit.
practice and or
He would know about those.
the same car
when he talks about China.
in the past.
Yeah.
They do it all the time.
It's a
Still.
threat to the suburbs and their safety is his failure to deal with COVID. They're dying in the
You know, in the
suburbs.
80s,
His failure to
you'd have
deal with
the gays
environment.
go into
They're
the
being
bathhouses.
flooded.
It
They're
was
being
just
burned
sex
out
24/7,
because
man.
Yeah.
You know.
That's why
And,
the suburbs are
now
in
the
trouble.
suburbs are.
Corn Pop came into the bathhouse and told me this, that the COVIDs will cause all...
The men in the bathhouse would stroke my leg hairs.
You
And
talked about reimagining.
I love how he's like, I grew up in the suburbs, not a black person inside. And he's like, "That's different."
Let me if I may ask you a question. What does reimagining policing mean? And do you
No.
support the Black Lives Matter
Oh, here we go.
They should wear
call
less clothes.
for community control of policing?
Look, what I support
Weasel
is
words.
the police having the opportunity to deal with the problems they face. And I'm totally opposed to
None
the
of them have a policy that's going to do anything to change anything.
police. The only one defunding it.
this is over
budget
how
calls for
thick your thin
$400
blue
million
line
cut in
is
local
on your
law enforcement
mask.
Wait.
assistance. They need more assistance.
Did he just say
They
Trump's
need, when they
cutting
show up for a
funding to
9/11
police?
call, to have someone with them as a psychologist.
They're
or
hitting each other
psychiatrist
over being
to
soft
keep
on
them
police
from having
funding.
to use force and be able to talk people down. We have to have community policing like we had before, where the officers get to know the people in the communities. That's when crime
Community
went
policing.
down. It didn't go
when
up.
the corn pops walk
And so we
around
have
and
to
they're...
be
That's
engaged
not what
in
they're
everything.
talking about.
You gotta have the
That's not
local
what-
Klan
He's
chapter
just
run
not
by the chief of
funding
police in your
that is
small
not
town, you
true.
know?
He doesn't have
They know
any
people.
law
Would
to
you
support.
look?
He has no
Community
law.
police officer
Almost-
Bull Connor of Montgomery, Alabama.
The Chaz is our local police officer. Get to know your local community.
Look,
Think, we have time.
we don't have time to do
No,
anything.
think
All right.
about it.
Look,
Name
folks,
one law enforcement group that came out and
I think,
supported
gentlemen,
you.
I think I'm going to take back the
There aren't.
moderator's
I don't think
role,
there are
and
any.
I want to get to another subject, which is the issue of protests.
We're just
in
getting to
many
the good bit.
cities that have turned violent. In Portland, Oregon, especially, we had more than 100.
How did you say the name of that
straight
state?
days of protests.
All
which I
done.
think you would agree. You talk about peaceful protests.
Oregon?
Many of those
Oregon?
turned
We're not
into
peaceful.
riots. Mr. Vice President, you say that people who commit crimes should be held accountable. The question I have, though, is as
Wow.
the Democratic nominee, and
Mind-blowing.
earlier tonight you said that you are the Democratic Party right now. Have you ever called the Democratic mayor of Portland or the Democratic governor of Oregon and said, hey, you got to stop this, bring in the National Guard, do whatever it takes, but you'd stop the days and months of violence?
Loaded question.
I don't hold public office now.
Are you an anarcho-Bidenist?
Former vice president. I've made it clear. in
I'm
my
a nobody.
public
I don't even know
statements
why I'm
that
here.
violence should be prosecuted. Should be prosecuted. And anyone who commits it
But
should
you've
be
never called
prosecuted.
for the people, the leader. Excuse me, sir. You have never called for the leaders in Portland and in Oregon to call
Because
and bring in the
Can you
National
not say
Guard
Oregon,
and knock
right?
off 100 days of riots.
Oregon.
They can, in fact, take care of it if he just stay out of the way. Look
Oh,
here.
oh, really?
Here-
Oh, really?
Here's the
But
thing.
no,
I
that-
sent
sir,
in the
no, wait, I
U.S.
asked him a
Marshals to
question.
get the killer
No,
of the
that-
young man in the middle of the street. They shot him.
Trying really hard.
President Trump,
Portland
President
wouldn't do
Trump,
anything. I had to send in the U.S. Marshals.
President
They
Trump,
took care of business.
go ahead,
And,
sir.
and by the way, you know, his own former spokesperson said,
What are they going to make
I don't
out?
know why
It's some very
"And
boring
chaos and
porn.
violence help his cause." That's what this is.
I don't know why Biden
I
is
do.
like stumbling on this question. Like everybody knows what he believes, and
Conway.
also
He's
He said
lobotomized.
that.
yeah, and there's no like I mean the pearly white graphic designers who are like rioting in Portland are still going to vote for him.
Yeah.
I'm fucking sorry, but there's no black people in that city. Black people are
Yeah.
not setting shit on fire.
How to deal with this
Like that's like middle class white people who can afford to fucking live in Portland.
constantly.
Oregon was
Every
literally like a
single-
white
Okay,
only
and to
state for like
end this,
so
button
long.
up this segment. I'm going to give you
Yeah.
a minute to answer, sir. You have repeatedly
Well, wait, I
criticized.
have to answer his
No,
statement.
you have
His statement.
repeatedly.
Wait,
You have
just one
repeated. No,
second.
you've been talking
You
back
made
and
a
forth.
statement.
I'm asking you.
I would love to
you know,
end it.
sir.
I would love to end it.
you know
Big
what,
dick
for
energy.
scenes,
Yeah.
We would very quickly.
We could do that, but
I'd
I'm
send
no,
in
I'm-
the National Guard, it would be over. There'd be no problem.
Okay.
But they
Good.
don't want to accept the National Guard.
You have repeatedly criticized the vice president for not specifically calling out Antifa and other left-wing
That's right.
extremist groups. But are you willing?
He also has not
to
called
condemn
out
white
my haters on
supremacists
Twitter
and militia
personally.
groups
Yeah, Val.
Yeah, this is the most
stand down
publicity that Antifa, like,
in a number of these cities, as we saw?
they give Antifa so much credit. It's so
You don't
funny.
have to
Like,
do
I
that.
feel like they're actually
Go ahead,
giving the
I would say
anarchists more
almost
valor
everything is
than,
from the left wing,
you
not
know.
from the right
So
wing.
what are you
If you
saying?
I'm willing to do anything. I want to see
Then
peace.
do it, sir.
Say it. Do it. Say it.
You want to call him? What do you want to call him? Give me a name. Give me a
White
name. Go ahead.
supremacists
Who
and
would
right
you like me to
supremacists.
condemn?
White supremacists and right
Proud
militia.
Boys, stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what.
Well, I think the Antifa thing works well
And
because
because
like
this is not a right.
the people
This is a
who
guy.
are like genuine like Antifa or whatever and have like no political project
Antifa's an
get what they
idea,
want
an
when they feel like
organization.
shitty and dangerous.
Wow.
That's what
Anarcho-Bidenist.
Wow.
His FBI
Horizontalism from
director
Biden.
said.
Well, then you know what?
No,
He's
no,
wrong.
we're done, sir. Moving on to the next.
Everybody
We're
When
moving.
a bat hits you over the head, that's not an idea.
Make out.
Everybody in your
Antifa is
administration tells you the truth has a bad idea.
This is a mess.
You have no ideas. that are-
This is the messiest debate they've
All right,
been.
gentlemen, we're now moving on
Our
to the
proud
government
democracy
idea.
at work.
They'll overthrow you.
When a
in 2
president, I'm
Andy Cohen should host the debate.
seeks a second term.
This is just shows we live in a failed state. This is such a joke.
Vice President Biden, you like to quote one of your dad's sayings,
I'll try to send you guys some
Almighty,
true
compare me to the alternative.
Prepared.
And this nature you
They should have
are
had
the
Rosie
alternative.
O'Donnell be the
Looking
moderator.
At both,
You know what really
I'm
bothers me?
asking you.
Forms more coherent sentences, and I can at least follow what she says, even though I want to kill myself after she
Yeah.
says
2 minutes.
Who?
Trump being more
there has
coherent.
never
Oh,
than Biden.
totally.
Yeah.
An administration or president who has done more than I've done in a period of 3.5 years. And that's despite the impeachment hoax. And you saw what happened today with Hillary Clinton, where it was a whole big con job.
We did
But
see that.
despite going through all of these things where I had to fight both flanks and behind me and above, there has never been an administration that's done what I've done. The greatest, before COVID came in, the greatest economy in history, lowest unemployment numbers. Everything was good. Everything was going. And by the way, there was unity going to happen. People were calling me for the first time in years. They were calling.
People on Twitter
saying,
are so
"No,
mad
maybe,"
that
and then
Trump
what happened?
didn't
We got hit,
denounce
but
white
now we're building it
supremacists,
back.
and I'm like, do you think it would mean anything even if he did?
Yeah.
Well, he said, what is it? Who do you want me to denounce?
Yeah.
You want me to denounce Proud
Which was
Boys?
a mess under him. 308,000.
Yeah, Trump could
Yeah,
throw
cut off.
That's all, I mean, that's all you could expect from
It wouldn't
liberals.
matter.
That's all you
Yeah.
can expect.
Well, they have to
VA,
maintain
our
this
vets. We
idea
take
that
care of our vets.
Trump is
But
like
we've
a white
rebuilt our military.
supremacist, like
The job that
fascist,
we've
and it's
done-
like
and I'll tell you something. Some people say
he was going to
maybe the
denounce
most
them. They'd be like, well,
by the end of the
then what do we have
first
to
term,
argue
I'll
against
have
him?
approximately 300 federal judges and Court of Appeals
Trump
judges.
just has to renounce his
And
whiteness.
three great Supreme Court judges, justices. That is a record, the likes of which very few people, and you know one of the reasons I'll have so many judges? Because President Obama and him left
Where's
me
Melania? I'm
128
so bored.
judges to fill. When you leave office, you don't leave any judges. That's like, you just don't do that. They left 128 openings. And if I were a member of his party, because they have a little different philosophy, I'd say if you left us 128 openings, you can't be a good president. You can't be a good vice president.
Competent
but I want to
management.
thank you
Right.
because it gives us almost, it'll probably be above that number by the end of this term. 300 judges. It's a record.
Looking at both your records,
Somebody called
The
it.
Democrats always bypass.
President.
They always like pass as judges. So I don't know what this resistance is doing. The so-called resistance.
Yeah. Hezbollah.
They're busy resisting.
And more violent.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's Hezbollah.
Yeah, it's Hezbollah
We
runs
inherited a
American
recession.
government.
I was asked.
Mhm.
I
Facts.
did. We left a booming economy, and he caused a recession. With regard to being weaker, the fact is that I've gone.
Actually, the crises of capitalism
We're not going to take
cause
any stuff.
continual recessions, usually around every 11 years.
Anything to Putin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's built into the system. So I don't know.
No,
Just COVID was the trigger.
Mr.
My
President,
son-
wait a minute. Mr. President, your campaign agreed to both sides would get 2-minute answers uninterrupted. Well, your side agreed to it. And why don't you observe what your campaign agreed to as a ground rule? Okay, sir?
He never keeps his word. Can you add back
No,
He's
I'm
a
not
person
asking.
that's
That was
not
a
knowing.
rhetorical question.
Can you
Go
add
ahead,
back
sir.
30 seconds?
That was a rhetorical.
All right.
Go ahead.
So, thirdly, we're poor. The billionaires have gotten much more wealthy
Like you.
by a tune of over 300 to 400 billion.
He is merely a
more
multimillionaire.
just since COVID.
Yeah.
You in the home, you got less. You're in more trouble than you were before. In terms of being more violent, when we were in office, there were 15% less violence in America than there is today. He's president of the United States. It's on his watch.
That was scary,
And with
Joe
regard
Eyes.
to
What was going
more
on
Oh my
there?
God, it was the
The nation
purge.
can't stay divided. We can't be this way. And speaking of my son, the way you talk about the military,
Bah, 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 bah,
the way you talk about them being
Your son's a
Sun
ruthless,
card.
Your
being-
son's a crack addict who
and just
supported
being selfish.
neo-Nazis.
My
Fuck
son-
off.
Right? Fuck your son.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not even hot. Very hot and a
At the Brown
fascist.
Star,
Did you say he's hot? Is he?
No, I said,
Loser.
at least,
hot.
I said at
He
least
was
be
a
hot and a
patriot,
fascist.
And the people left behind there were heroes.
Really?
And I resent like hell.
Are you talking
I'm
about
talking about my son, Bo Biden. You're talking
Oh, the
about
dead son, not the crackhead one.
Hunter
You know,
got thrown
Yeah, fuck him too.
What was the question?
Yeah.
out dishonorably.
The crackhead son, like also fucked his like dead
Oh,
brother's
right.
wife.
Yeah.
Right.
That is true.
Yeah.
He made a fortune in Ukraine, in China, in Moscow,
That is simply
and various
not
other places.
true.
It's
He
My
made a
son-
true.
fortune,
It's
My
true.
son,
and he didn't have a
my
job.
son, like a lot of people we know at home. had
My
a
son
drug
also
problem.
like
Oh, yeah.
$1 million from
He's-
Ukrainian
he's
fascists.
fixed it. He's worked on it. And I'm proud of him.
But why
I'm
was he
proud of
given
my
tens
son.
of millions
All
of
right.
But he
dollars?
wasn't given
All right.
tens of
He
millions
was
of dollars.
given
That
tens
is
of
totally,
millions of
that's
President Trump-
totally.
President
Trump-
You've already been
He has to admit that they give neo-Nazis weapons
already been through this.
and they overthrew their government.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he just like
Well, you know, as a
Fast.
moderator, sir, I'm going to make
I know,
a
but when
judgment call
somebody
here.
gets $3.5 million
Right.
from there,
here because you know, smart
That report is totally
Why did he-
fucking same candidate.
Romney on that committee said it wasn't worth taxpayers' money. That report, it was written for political reasons.
You know, I'd like to talk about climate change.
So
It's the same thing with like
Oh my God.
Joe Kennedy or whatever, where you just when attacked, just hold up the corpse of a dead family member and
Yeah.
protect you.
Of thousands of
Yeah, why would you
people.
choose a son
When
that
state
clearly is not the one you're
officials
talking
are
about at
playing
all?
fires on climate change, Mr.
Like he's not the
President,
crack addict.
I
He's
don't
dead. He can't
the
do
science.
crack.
No. For 4 years,
I'm sorry,
you
I'm
have pulled
horrible.
The U.S. out of the Paris Climate Accord. You have rolled back a number of Obama environmental records. What do you believe about the science of climate change, and what will you do in the next 4 years to
Fake
confront it?
news. No, I'm just
I
kidding.
want crystal
Science.
water and air. I want beautiful, clean air. We have now the lowest carbon. If you look at our numbers right now, we are doing phenomenally.
Yeah.
But I haven't.
Yeah, because nobody can take a fucking plane, you dipshit.
I want beautiful water like my daughter Ivanka.
From our side.
Water you could
very
fuck.
happy about that because our businesses are doing well. As far
Terrible.
as fires are concerned,
Yeah.
I need forest management. In addition to everything else, the forest floors
Yeah,
are
we gotta rake
loaded up
them.
with trees, dead trees
Oh,
that
is he
are
gonna do
years old, and they're like tinder. And leaves and everything else. You drop a cigarette in there, the whole forest burns down. You've got to have forest
This is
I love how he
California.
said cigarette like my grandma. Cigarette. I love that shit.
I believe that we have to do everything we can to have immaculate air, immaculate water, and do whatever else we can. That's
An
good.
immaculate
we're planting
conception.
1 billion trees, the Billion Tree Project, and it's very
You
exciting.
believe
for a lot of people.
that human
Kind of like what China's doing, actually.
greenhouse gas emissions contributes to the global
Billion
warming?
trees. Those are just going to have dead on the forest floor and going to have to be cleaned up. You're going to have to rake those.
But I also think we have to do better management. of
It'll
our-
have to compete with Matt Iglesias' a billion Americans, one tree for every of or a billion Americans.
you had
Yeah,
forest
so
management,
stupid.
good forest management, you wouldn't be getting those calls. You know, in Europe, they have forest cities. They're called forest cities. They maintain their forests. They manage their forests. I was with the head of a major country.
In China.
It's a forest city.
Finland.
He said, sir, we have trees that are far more, they ignite much easier than California. There shouldn't be that problem. I spoke with the governor about it. I'm getting along very well with the governor. But I said, you know, at some point, you can't every year have
His wife is
hundreds
literally
of
speaking, and
thousands
the
of
ex-wife is
acres
speaking
of
the stump
land just
for
burned to
Trump.
the ground.
So-
Melania?
That's burning down
No.
because of a lack
Newsom's
of management.
ex-wife.
Sir, if you believe in the science of climate change, why have you rolled back the Obama Clean Power Plan, which limited carbon emissions in power plants? Why have you relaxed?
Because it was driving energy prices through the sky.
Why have you relaxed fuel economy standards that are going to create more pollution from cars?
Well,
and
not
trucks?
really, because what's happening is the car is much less expensive and it's a much safer car. And you're talking about a tiny difference. And then what would happen, because of the cost of the car, you would have at least double and triple the number of cars purchased. We have the old slugs out there that are 10, 12 years old.
It's actually
If
true.
you did that, the car
Personal
would be
transportation
safer,
is about
it would be much
6%
cheaper,
of CO2
but
in the
emissions.
case of California, they've simply
No, but you
ignored
would take a lot of
your
cars
rollback.
off the market because
Factory
people would
farms
be
are
able
far
to afford
more.
a car.
Take away the burgers, man. Take away the burgers.
It turns out, but a lot of people agree with me. Many people.
20%
Cars
is
gotten
container
so
ships.
expensive because
There's
they have
more from
computers
rice
all over
farming
the
than any
place for an
transportation.
extra little bit
For methane.
of gasoline. And by
That's
the,
not-
and I'm okay with electric cars too. I think I'm all for electric
Yeah,
cars. I've
Tesla.
given big incentives for electric cars. But what they've done in California is just
Our
basic.
apartheid, Elon Musk.
Vice President Biden, I'd like you to respond to the president's climate change record, but I also want to ask you about a concern. You proposed $2 trillion in green jobs. You talk about new limits, not abolishing, but new limits on fracking, ending the use of fossil fuels to generate electricity by 2035, and zero net emission of greenhouse gases by 2050. The president says a lot of these things would tank the economy and cost millions of jobs.
He's absolutely wrong, number one. Number two, if in fact, during our administration, the Recovery Act, I was in charge, able to bring down the cost of renewable energy to cheaper than or
You
as
also
cheap as
surged
coal and gas
and oil in America.
Nobody's going to build
Fracking.
another.
Yeah.
He won't ban fracking either. That's what he repeated over and over again. So he's with the science. Democrats are always with science. Don't forget.
Energy, number one. Number two.
That
we're gonna
decrease
use
literally
able
from
to
more
take the
fracking and more
federal
natural
fleet
gas.
and turn it
Where's our
into a fleet that's
nuclear?
run
Changing coal to
on
natural
their
gas.
electric
That's his
vehicles.
fucking
Making sure
contribution.
we can do that. We're going to put 500,000 charging stations and all of the highways that we're going to be building in the future.
And the power.
Those charging stations are linked up to the electrical grid, which uses coal.
For the ability us to take 4 million buildings
Coal-powered
and make
cars.
sure that they,
Go
in
from
fact,
transition
are
from gasoline-powered
weatherized
cars to
in a way
coal-powered
that,
cars.
In fact, they'll emit significantly less gas and oil because the heat will not be going out. There's so many things that we can do now to create thousands and thousands of jobs. We can get to net zero in terms of energy production by 2035. Not only not costing people
Net
jobs,
zero in
creating
terms of
jobs,
energy production.
creating millions of
No, I need
jobs,
energy. My
not
fridge
15
doesn't
bucks
run
an
without
hour,
it.
But prevailing wage. by having a new infrastructure that in fact is green. And the first thing I will do, I will rejoin the Paris Accord.
It doesn't do anything.
Gotta say, Howie Hawkins was much more passionate and cogent on this subject.
Talk about someone who has no relationship with foreign policy. Brazil, the rainforest of Brazil, are
Bolsonaro.
being torn down.
You helped put him in power.
More carbon is absorbed in that rainforest than every bit of carbon that's emitted in the United States. Instead of doing something about that, I would be gathering up and making sure we had the countries of the world coming up with $20 billion. Say, here's $20 billion. Stop tearing down the forest.
Yeah.
And if you don't,
that's why we got rid of Evo Morales, because he was bad.
What about the argument that President Trump basically says that you have to balance environmental interests and economic interests, and he's drawn his line?
Well, he hadn't drawn a line. He still, for example, he wants to make sure that methane's not a problem. You can now emit more methane without it being a problem. Methane.
Cows.
This is a guy who says that you don't have to have mileage standards for automobiles that exist now. This is a guy who says that, well, the fact that it's all true. And here's the deal.
What the hell is he talking about?
2 billion or 20 billion, as you said. It's $100 trillion.
I'm talking about
where they want to rip down buildings and rebuild the building.
No,
it's the dumbest, most ridiculous. Where airplanes are out of business, where two-car systems are out, where they want to take out the cows too. That's not true either, right? This is a
get rid of the cows. Fuck the cows.
That's more money than our country
go
could
vegan.
make in 100 years.
Exactly.
All right, let me because I actually, wait a minute, sir. I actually have studied your plan, and it includes upgrading 4 million buildings, weatherizing 2 million homes over 4 years, building 1.5 million energy efficient homes. So the question becomes, the president is saying, I think some
just
people
looks so horrible.
The president would say that sounds like it's going to cost a lot of money and hurt the economy.
What it's going to do is going to create thousands and millions of jobs, good paying jobs.
But let him finish, sir.
He doesn't know how to do that.
Yeah, we're going to make millions of fracking jobs.
Millions of good paying jobs. And these tax incentives to people
supplying Hunter with crack,
which he wants to get rid
millions
of. It's going to make the economy much safer.
We're going to make millions of jobs in Colombia to feed my son.
By the way, he has an answer for hurricanes. He said maybe we should drop a nuclear weapon on them. They may.
I never said that.
He did say.
You made it up.
No, Sam Harris said that.
Yeah. We are going to be in a position where we can create hard, good jobs by making sure the environment
good jobs. What is a hard, good job exactly? Pray tell.
Billions of dollars on floods, hurricanes, rising seas. We're in real trouble. Look what's happened just in the Midwest with these
None of this will be like New Deal era make work sort of like make work jobs where you actually get paid by the government. And
we make up 15%
or whatever. It's just going to be like a series of like tax cuts and like contracts that allow rich people and corporations to wet their fucking beak and pay people like shit.
Paris Accord.
Yeah, hard earned income tax credit.
Well, everyone forgets the old New Deal was like a massive consolidation effort of cartels and industry. Like there's a raising cartel in America because of the New Deal.
He made a couple of statements. The Green New Deal is $100 trillion.
That is not my plan.
That's
Green.
We're against the Green New Deal.
That's the plan we plagiarized and watered down.
About the military. Then I said something about the military. He and his friends made it up, and then they went with it. I never said it.
Okay.
That is
what he did.
Sir,
Is he
you're done in
said
this segment.
He called the military
Mr. Vice President,
stupid bastards.
I did not say that.
Oh, he did.
He said stupid
That did say.
bastards.
Yeah.
Sir,
stop.
I would
It was a
never say
joke,
that.
but-
Stop.
Was it?
Kind
Go
of.
ahead.
You're
Mr.
on
Vice
tape.
President answered his final question.
The final question is, I can't remember which of all was ranting.
Wow, I'm shocked.
I'm having a little trouble myself, but
I don't remember where I am.
The economy and about this question of what it's going to cost.
The economy.
What did Biden forget this time?
The idea of what
He had a
your
stroke.
environmental changes will do.
Green New Deal
Yeah.
Biden is a stroke.
itself
Yeah.
as we move
He
forward.
really is.
We're not going to build plants that, in fact, are great polluting plants.
So do you
We're going to
support
build
the Green New Deal?
Great polluting
You
plants.
support that?
No, I don't support the Green
Oh,
New
you
Deal.
don't? Oh, well,
I
that's
thought we were going to
Doesn't support gardening.
I support
you
the
don't.
Biden plan that
Yeah.
I put forward.
Okay.
I support the
America.
Biden plan.
Which is what?
green.
It's the plan, the Biden one.
Election integrity. As we
I can't wait for like if he does win, when he like announces like I've rescinded my support for the Biden plan
confident
after consulting with industry.
fair election, and what are you prepared to do
Oh my God.
over the next 5+ weeks, because it'll not only be to election day but also counting some ballots, mail-in ballots after election day. What are you prepared to do to reassure the American people that the next president will be the legitimate winner of this election? In this final segment, Mr. Vice President.
Well, we're not going to do it with every other country,
Vote.
so
You should go to iwillvote.com, decide how they're going to vote, when they're going to vote, and what means by which they're going to vote. His own
How they're going to vote and by what
Security
means.
Director and
Amazing.
the FBI director says
Voting for Gloria La Riva, y'all.
mail-in ballots are a source of being manipulated and cheated.
I'm voting for
They said
Trump.
that.
He has
The
like
fact is that
beautiful
there are
orange
millions of
skin
people because
and a
of
hot
COVID
wife.
that are going to be
I'm just
voting
kidding.
by mail-in ballots. He does.
And clearly
This is
like
behind the resolute
small
destiny
dick, but
sends
like
it back
big
to
dick
Florida.
energy, and
Number one.
that's
Number
inspirational to
We're going to
everyone.
make sure that those who want to vote in person
Yeah.
are able to vote because they're not poll
Hey,
watchers.
Howie visited us
Make sure they
personally.
can
I'm
socially distance.
I'm down with him.
Polls are open on time.
I'm voting for the Libertarian Party. I'm just kidding.
And this is all about trying to dissuade people from voting because he's trying to scare people into thinking that it's not going to be legitimate.
Scare.
Show up and vote.
Yeah.
You will determine the outcome of this election. Vote, vote, vote. If you're
Emotional
able to
appeal down the
vote
camera.
in person, vote in person, vote whatever way is the best way for you.
Vote
Because
with your-
he cannot stop you from being able to determine the outcome of this election. And in terms of whether or not when the votes are counted and they're all counted, that will be accepted. If I win, that will be accepted. If I lose, that'll be accepted.
No,
But by the
it won't.
way, if in fact he says he's not sure,
It'll be
what he's
another
gonna
4
accept,
years of like,
well, let me tell you
now
something.
China's
It doesn't matter.
rigged the
Because
election.
If Biden wins, Biden will accidentally contest the election results.
Yeah.
But it turned out that Hillary Clinton set up the Russiagate bullshit from the like declassified document that was released today. So who knows?
I really want to hear what Trump is going to say here.
Mr. President, 2 minutes.
So when I listened to Joe talking about a transition, there's been no transition from when I won. I won that election. And if you look at crooked Hillary Clinton, if you look at all of the different people, there was no transition because they came after me trying to do a coup. They came after me spying on my campaign. They started from the day I won and even before I won, from the day I came down the escalator with our first lady. They were a disaster.
Iconic.
They were a disgrace to our country. And we've caught them. We've caught them all. We've got it all on tape. We've caught them all. And by the way, you gave the idea for the Logan Act against General Flynn. You better take a look at that because we caught you in a sense. And President Obama was sitting in the office. He knew about it too. So don't tell me about a free transition. As far as the ballots are concerned, it's a disaster. A solicited ballot, okay, solicited is okay. You're soliciting, you're asking, they send it back, you send it back. I did that. If you have an unsolicited, they're sending millions of ballots all over the country. There's fraud. They found them in creeks. They found some with the name Trump, just happened to have the name Trump just the other day in a waste paper basket. They're being sent all over the place. They sent 2 in a Democrat area. They sent out 1,000 ballots. Everybody got 2 ballots. This is going to be a fraud like you've never seen. The other thing, it's nice on November 3rd, you're watching and you see who won the election. And I think we're going to do well because people are really happy with the job we've done. But you know what? We won't know. We might not know for months.
I have been happy
because
for
these ballots
years.
are going to be all over. Take a look at what happened in Manhattan. Take a look at what happened in New Jersey. Take a look at what happened in Virginia and other places. They're not losing 2%, 1%, which, by the way, is too much. An election could be won or lost with that. They're losing 30 and 40%. It's a fraud and it's a shame. And can you imagine where they say you have to have your ballot in by November
He's trying to
10th?
say Biden's going to steal the
November 10th.
election with
That
crooked
means
Hillary.
That's 7 days after
The mail-in
the election. In
ballots.
theory, should have been announced.
They lose all the
We have
mail-ins.
major
I can't follow
are
what
all
he's
run by
saying.
Democrats.
2 minutes.
all run by
It's a stroke
Democrats.
fest.
President Trump.
I will say, as a Floridian, like mail-in ballots do fuck us
yeah.
up like every day.
Oh, they just throw them away in California. They've never counted a single mail-in ballot.
Yeah, or put them in a truck and like burn them in a field somewhere.
In the last midterm election, 31 million people voted mail-in voting.
Fair elections in America.
A quarter, more than a quarter of all the voters that year cast their ballots by mail. Now that millions of mail-in ballots have gone out, what are you going to do about it?
There's literally
And
better
are you
elections in
counting on the
Venezuela.
Supreme
Like even
Court,
Jimmy Carter agreed
including
with
a
that.
Justice Barrett, settle any dispute?
Yeah,
Like
I think we're counting on them to look at the ballots. Definitely. I
That's true.
hope we don't need them in terms of the election itself. But for the ballots, I think so. Because what's happening is incredible. I read today where at least 1% of the ballots for 2016 were invalidated. They take them. We don't like them. We don't like them.
But what are you going to do about it? There are millions of ballots going out
What
right
you
now.
do
What
is
are
you
gonna
go
do?
and vote. You do a solicited ballot,
No,
and that's
I
okay.
know
Or
your
you go and
complaint.
vote.
I'm asking you about the fact that millions of people.
But they do throw out
You
votes.
go.
They do invalidate votes.
So what are
Like
you
they
gonna do
used
about
to.
the fact that
If
millions of people-
if I wanted my ballot to be invalidated, I would simply
You're
vote.
sending it in, they're sending it back, and you're sending. They have mailmen with lots of it. Did you see what's going on? Take a look at West Virginia. Mailmen selling the ballots. They're being sold. They're being dumped. This is a horrible thing for our country. This is
I
not.
hope that they are. I'd love to see a mailman get the coin.
Yeah.
This is not.
This is how Randy G-Dubs became popular.
Mail-in ballot.
Was with
Randy
the,
Rebo?
That makes any fucking sense.
Decade or more.
They're selling ballots?
Yeah, well, the Randy G-Dubs or whatever on Twitter, he became very big when his tweet blew up where he said, "I'm a mailman in like rural Wisconsin, and I am discarding any ballots for Donald Trump." He's not a mailman, for the record.
Be counted. He's just afraid of counting the votes. because he
You're
knows the
wrong.
outcome.
You're wrong.
No, I want to continue with you on
I
this,
love that.
Vice President Biden. because
Chris, he's so wrong
in-
when he makes
in
a
fact,
statement
no.
like that.
This whole debate just gives me a headache.
Yeah.
It's awful.
I feel like it's just a waste of time.
You,
We haven't learned anything.
you didn't have the right supplies.
It only reassuirmed everything I've said for the past, like since the primaries started.
had not been properly filled out.
But I do have this, which is 500 milligrams.
The deadline. So the question
Oh,
I have
damn.
is,
Of
are
weed.
you concerned?
Wait, what is that?
Wow.
Weird.
Justice
A legal
Barrett-
drug you can buy in the shop.
Comrade gave it to me.
Any court would say, here's the deal.
I'm scandalized.
When you get a ballot and you fill it out, you're supposed to have an affidavit. If you didn't know, you have someone say that this is me. You should be able to, if in fact you can verify that's you before the ballot is thrown out. That's
Is it
sufficient
bad?
to be
I
able to
hate
count the
Biden
ballot
more than I
because
hate
someone
Trump
made a mistake.
in that kind of way.
Dotting the correct. Who they voted for, testify, say who
He's
they
just
voted
so
for.
senile, and
say
I
it's
just.
you. That is totally legitimate.
All right.
Excuse me,
No,
Chris,
no, no.
when you
I
have
a final-
80 million ballots
Gentlemen, I have a final
sending
question.
and swamping the system,
You
know it can't be done. You know it can't. And already
All
there's
right,
been
so now-
fraud.
Mail service
deception.
delivers.
Oh my God, just make out already.
In
80
8
million ballots.
states, we can keep talking.
It's
In
a-
8
it's a
states,
disgrace.
election workers are prohibited currently by law, 8 states, from even beginning to process ballots, even take them out of the envelopes and
Yes.
flatten them until election day. That means that it's likely, because there's going to be a huge increase in mail-in balloting, that we are not going to know on election
Mail-in
day
balloting.
who the winner is. It could be days, it could be weeks.
Female in
Until
balloting.
we find out who the new president is. So first
Where
for
is
you, sir.
everyone?
Finally, for the vice president, I hope neither of you will interrupt the other. Will you urge your
Masturbating.
supporters to
Aw.
speak up during this extended period, not to
I think
engage?
we should do it like American Idol back in the early odds, when it was just teenage girls like robo-dialing like a
until the
1-800
election
number.
Yeah.
independently certified.
They're much more democratic.
Trump, you
I'm
go first.
urging my
I want the
supporters
first
to
ladies
go
to
into the
debate. I want
polls and watch
Jill
very
Biden
carefully,
and
because
Melania
that's what has
Trump to
happen.
debate.
I am
It'll be
urging them
amazing.
to do it. As you know, today there was a big problem in Philadelphia. They went in to watch. They're called poll watchers, a very safe, very nice thing. They were thrown out. They
I like
weren't
to
allowed
watch
to
poll
watch.
once in a
You know
while.
why?
Yeah,
Because
I've done
bad
that.
things
big
happen
poll,
in Philadelphia.
you know.
Bad
A
things.
small poll,
And
whatever
I
the
am
poll.
urging-
Yeah.
I am
I will
urging my
watch.
people.
We're not
I hope
poll
it's gonna be a
sizes.
I'm
fair
urging my
election.
people to
If
watch
it's a
the
fair
poll.
election, I am 100% on board. But if I see tens of thousands of ballots being manipulated, I can't go along with that. And I'll tell
And
you
what
what,
does that
from
mean?
a common
Not go along?
sense,
Does that mean
I'll
you're going
tell
to
you
tell
what
your
it means.
people to take to the
It means you
street?
have a fraudulent election. You're
And what are
sending
you
out
gonna do?
80
And
million
what would you
ballots.
do about that?
They're not equipped to. These people aren't equipped to handle it. Number one. Number two, they cheat. They cheat. Hey, they found ballots in a waste paper basket 3 days ago, and they all had the name military ballots. They were military. They all had the name Trump on them.
Vice President
You think
Biden,
that's good?
Vice President Biden, final question for you. Will
I think that's
you
good. I
urge
think we
your
should trash
supporters
all
to
military
stay calm while the vote is counted, and will you pledge not to declare victory until the election is independently certified?
Yes, and here's the deal. We count the ballots, as you pointed out.
I don't know what I'm
Some
being
of these
asked.
ballots in some states can't even be opened until Election Day.
Trump derangement
There's
syndrome,
thousands of
the
ballots
musical.
gonna take time to do it. And by the way, our military, they've been voting by ballots since the end of the Civil War.
Well, they've been voting by ballots by the end of the Civil War.
So we could throw them out.
No, by ballots, he just said.
No, I got you.
Yeah.
It's the same process. It's honest. No one has established at all that
You know,
there
in
is
Delaware in the
fraud
60s, you
related
just
to
threw a
the
rock
in
in a
ballots.
bucket.
That somehow
And
it's
if it
a
was
fraudulent process.
It's already been
black
established.
for Democrat,
Look at
white for
Carolyn
Republican.
Maloney's race.
You had an opportunity to
Look at
respond.
Carolyn Monroe.
Go ahead.
Like
They
the
have no idea what
Athenians,
happened.
He has no idea what he's talking about. Here's the deal.
I love
The
that.
fact is, I will accept it, and he will too. You know why? Because
We're going to
once
kill
the
him. We're
winner
going to
is
shoot him on
declared,
election day.
all the ballots are counted. All the votes are counted. That'll be the end of it. That'll be the end of it.
Oh my
And if it's
God.
me, in fact, fine. If it's not me,
I really hope it's
I'll
not
support
you.
the outcome, and I'll be a president not just for the Democrats. I'll be a president for Democrats and Republicans.
Ooh,
mostly Republicans.
You say that's the end of it? This is the end of this debate?
Honest ballot count.
We're
And I
going to
think
leave
he
it
does
there.
too.
Make out,
To be
make out.
continued
Make.
as in more debates. As President
the majority.
I want to thank you both.
How did you do that?
participating
Robot.
in the first of 3 debates that you have agreed to engage in. We want to thank Case Western Reserve University.
Who's the top and who's the
and
bottom?
Clinic for hosting this.
Oh,
event.
neither of them can like get it in. Because,
Will be 1 week from
Eric,
tomorrow,
your audio is
October
screwed up.
7th at the University of Utah in Salt Lake City. The
I mean,
two
Trump's
vice presidential
clearly the
nominees,
top,
Vice
and
President
Biden's
Mike Pence
clearly
and
the
Senator Kamala
asexual.
Harris, will debate
All
at
right,
9
I'm
p.m.
gonna
Eastern that night.
duck out the fade out Chris Wallace there.
Did you want to stay on and talk about the stuff after?
There's
or-
some red lettuce.
Yeah.
Whoa,
Eric, your audio is like
Yeah,
really.
you
bad.
sound
your
like
audio
a,
is scary. You should refresh really
you
quick.
sound like a sexy robot,
yeah.
Yeah, you do.
or like a smoker. Like if Melania Trump smoked a lot. Bad.
Still bad. I would refresh. It'll
Oh
help.
wait, Melania's on the stage right now.
Oh my God,
Oh my
my
God.
queen, Slovenia forever.
Oh, we lost Mila.
Oh
Bye, Mila.
God, she is so beautiful.
I love that Jill's wearing a mask though. Like
Oh my God, she's wearing the biggest mask I've ever seen.
Audio better
Joe
now.
Biden and Trump.
Yeah, much better, Eric.
Okay.
I don't like Trump, but like
Oh God, they're approaching within 6 feet. Oh God,
I love
Biden
Melania.
just tried to hug Chris Wallace and got rejected.
I just want to say that like
Melania.
the Donald Trump Chris Wallace debate was exhilarating.
Yeah, got the blood racing. I got to duck off for a few minutes, but Sam will carry the torch.
Period.
Wallace.
I'm Googling what happens if Joe Biden dies of COVID before the election to see if anybody's written an article about it.
We'll have Kamala. We'll have Randy Rainbow and
Can you
Kamala.
vote for a dead man? Is that like legal, or do you? Is
can.
it just like a you forfeit, or who knows?
Where the fuck was it?
That's a good question.
Oh, and Oregon or Washington, where what's his name? Who's the awful Rose Caucus guy?
Joshua for Congress.
Joshua for Congress lost to a dead person during the campaign. They could have him on ballot because legally that's required. And he literally lost to a dead person despite making like $200,000 in like donations from across the country. And everyone was like mad at me for like the whole year. I was like a dick to him. I'm like, yeah, he lost to a dead person. He's not a person that we're people like. His campaign was cringe. It was liberal bullshit. It's anarchism.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could have like gotten more votes than him just for having like a cool name.
You could have showed
Like,
like
for
a shirtless picture and would have got more votes than him.
Yeah, kind of like you did today.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm actually running in Washington's 10th congressional district. This is a start to my campaign.
Hairy nips on the ballot. Vote for
Yeah,
it.
we love
I'm
it.
voting for hairy nips.
We love an otter running for Congress.
We need more hairy nips on the ballot.
We need some otter unity.
Just
Okay,
Congress.
so
wait, is it over? Is it over?
It's totally over. Yeah,
it's over.
Oh, thank God. That was terrible.
So, Mila, did you successfully meddle in our elections?
I hope so. I think I did a little bit more than that Jesus masturbation meme, and so that's like all that matters, you know. I just want to like get a one up on the Russians.
Yeah. I was sad we didn't see any like Asma, Melania like one-on-one scenes throughout the live stream.
Yeah, we need Asma we need her to moderate the next debate.
I want to see Ann Coulter moderate one of these
Yeah,
debates.
that would be hilarious.
Let Ann Coulter moderate a debate, you cowards.
Oh my God, that racist long neck. Jesus Christ.
I had a friend who didn't know what Ann Coulter looked like, and she was in an internship in DC, and she was the speaker, but she didn't know what she looked like, and literally pushed her out of the way in the bathroom to wash her hands, and then sat down, and that lady went on stage and was like, "Oh, I'm Ann Coulter," and she was like, "Oh fuck." She like shoved Ann Coulter out of the way to like wash her hands, and I was like, "Yes, that's amazing."
She's like a racist like brontosaurus. Her
See, I don't
neck is so long.
I don't think she's like actually racist though. I think she's just like the epitome of like grifter, where she just kind of does
interpretation.
Yeah, like I think Milo's the same way. Milo Yiannopoulos are the same way. They're both like they'll just say whatever gets them controversy. To yeah. I don't think they believe anything they say.
Ann Coulter is like if a menthol cigarette were a person. But but I do have like a weird respect for her because she like to be not because her politics are abhorrent, but she was like way ahead of the game in terms of all these like dumb like libertarian like cucks who were just like Americans love the free market and blah blah, and she's like, no, they fucking don't. Like way back in like 2014. And like, Mitt Romney is a terrible candidate. He's a fucking plutocrat. He's a weirdo. People aren't gonna like him. Like she's awful and like racist. But I think that she like understands like, even though she's like a rampant anti-communist, I think she understands like sort of like the working class mindset in a way that like a lot of Republicans at the time didn't, and that in a way that most Democrats still don't. Like she understands like how to get people going for the worse. I mean, she's fucking evil, but like she will actually speak to people's material conditions, which is a lot better than you could say for somebody like Joe Biden.
Well, have you seen the Vice episode where they tagged a lot of Ann Coulter, and she had like tons of gay friends and like black friends, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure Joe Biden doesn't know a single black person minus like Kamala. So
yeah, and she was like, gay marriage will ruin. She was like, I'm against gay marriage because it'll ruin gay culture or whatever. And I'm like, she was right though.
She's a fag.
Did she really say that? That it was gay culture?
Like way back in like 2004. Yeah.
I was against
really
gay marriage. I still am, actually.
I actually remember waking up to the day when the Supreme Court ruled gay marriage was a thing. And I'm just like, oh my God, you can get married. And I'm like, I don't care. I'm going back to sleep. It's 12 a.m. Or 12 p.m. I'm so tired. Like I didn't know
like, when they legalized gay marriage. I was like, I was almost homeless.
Yeah, no, same. My friend Jenny Sett interrupted Obama and Biden at their White House dinner celebrating the gay marriage victory. Yeah. And all the gays like hated on her.
She got kicked out, right? She got kicked out.
Yeah, she got kicked out.
Was she the one that brought up the like
the deporting during
the
Yeah, I mean, it's like all that money they put into gay marriage when issues facing the LGBT community were a lot more immediate, like homelessness, murders, like employment, healthcare.
I have actually a really funny story. I once, Gaiety, like one of those like horrible liberal gay media outlets. They wrote an article like why Hillary is the best person in 2016 for gay people. And I wrote like a really like, she supports the fucking Saudis in their comments. Well, I'm a libertarian. They're like, oh, would you want to write an article for us? And I basically just like fully trashed like why both parties suck on like LGBT stuff. Cause it was mostly like the trans like prisoner stuff and like the murder rates and stuff.
Mhm.
They published it. And I was like, just vote third party. Don't vote for like either of these fucking horrible people. And they published it. And I was like, oh, thank goodness.
After watching this, I can honestly say that I think not voting for Joe Biden. First of all, I think it's theater. It's voting is theater, but I think voting for anybody other than Trump or Biden is for the greater good.
Mila, who are you voting for?
Well, funny you should ask because BC just called an election, the province I'm living in. So we're having a provincial election soon.
Ooh, Trudeau.
Right now we have like a nominally socialist government. It's kind of like social democrat.
Okay.
There's some good stuff that's happened in terms of like making pharmacare a little bit more accessible.
What's that like?
What's it like to not lose your house for not being able to afford your healthcare?
Yeah, what's healthcare like?
Yeah, I do really sympathize with you guys because I've never like had to worry about healthcare bills and but pharmacare is a little bit different. So here for pharmacare you do actually have to pay, whereas if I go to the doctor, I don't pay anything, but if I go to get so I know that's still an improvement, but there's some things that's not covered. So for pharmacare, it sucks. When I stopped being a student, my medications went up by a lot. But our government's trying to make a fair pharmacare act or whatever. But yeah, so I feel we have some socialistic healthcare policies, but it could always be better.
Yeah. I actually just lost my healthcare in Wisconsin or in the US because my mom lost her job and she was the healthcare provider. But there's there's Medi-Cal, so I got that and it's free. And they gave me more prep than I normally did. I have to only go once every 3 months versus once every month. So in a way it was a blessing, but I also lost my good healthcare. So
it sucks that it's tied to employment there. That's so stupid.
Everything is here.
Being American, it just fucking sucks.
It's a dictatorship, corporate dictatorship, y'all.
Yeah, I wrote down something too at the beginning where Joe Biden was saying that Trump was accusing him of supporting a public option. Then he said that he did, but only for people who were poor or something, which I'm okay, well, that's not a public option. That's just Medicaid. We already kind of have that. It's shit, but we have it. And it's because there's a lot of talk about that's supposed to be the moderate position or progressive for the Democratic Party, but moderate in terms of the Medicare for All debate is oh, you'll have a public option where the state will provide everyone you can buy into this government healthcare plan or whatever, and the doctors are going to have to accept it and blah 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 blah. But the thing is they will never actually do that. They will never actually do that in a way that's not means tested to hell or like excludes people if you already have insurance through your employer.
Or they want to means test it because they want to make the public think that it doesn't fucking work, and so that they can just, in a few years they can just be like, see, this doesn't work. This is a socialist scam, you know.
Well, because the thing that people say about the public option is well, it would be a way to Medicare for all because a government healthcare plan is obviously going to be cheaper than a private insurance plan because like the government does have to make a profit, and that's true. But that's also why they would never fucking do it. Like why Democrats would never do it, because like there's no way that like if they can muster up the courage or whatever to pass a public option that's truly like open to everyone and always going to be cheaper than like a corporate health plan, like that would be just basically the same as like Medicare for all. It would just be like protracted, because like basic law of economics, like people are going to go with the cheaper healthcare plan if it's actually an option that's available to them universally, which is why it's never going to fucking happen. And like anytime I hear like the public option thing, I just tune out, because like those people are not to be taken seriously. Like whatever they're going to give you is going to be shit. It's not going to be like what they're making you think it is, because you might as well just pass like Medicare for all at that point. Like it's really stupid.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. The public option was like public option was like 15 years ago.
Yeah.
But I'm just convinced that we're not. If we didn't get these concessions when like Canada got them and the west of like Europe got them, well then we're not going to get it until we actually take state power.
Yeah.
The working class, like we're going to have to take state power for any of these things to really happen. Like, but we can't really even entertain the idea with this. Like, look what we just saw on stage. Like, we live in a failed state, and it's just never going to happen unless we actually start mobilizing our own vanguard party and training the working class to be militant and take state power. Because that's the only way that we're going to get anything that we need to survive.
Yeah,
I'm on that program.
Yeah, I signed up with you.
There's just so much facade. That's the thing.
Yeah, I just want to say that like it's a failed state for us, but it's not a failed state for them, because at the end of the day, Raytheon has still won this election. The fossil fuel industry has still won this election.
Yeah.
Biden just said it.
Yeah.
I don't support the New Green Deal. That's what he fucking said.
Yeah.
The Democrat, like the AOC Green New Deal is like
it's corporate.
It's Slim Pickens, lesser of two evils kind of thing, and he doesn't support it.
Well,
so
people got mad about like it's like Smirka, if you know about her on Twitter, pointing out like how AOC was like, oh well, we would be willing to like compromise and have just the public options. Like the Medicare for all is the compromise. Like that's not a state funded controlled healthcare system. That's just insurance. There's literally like it's not even close to an NHS system. Like the fact that you would even compromise before an election, just like, you know, like our left wing in Congress are just a bunch of like dipshit losers who want to like bring us all back into the Democrat Party. Like AOC and Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib and all these others pretend to be like radicals, but when it comes down to it, they're all actually all siding with the same imperialist class and the capitalist class. And if more time going on, like they're siding more and more of the imperialists. We're like, oh well, we should have a meeting about the Venezuela elections. Like, no, worry about your own district. Like, leave everyone else alone. Like, stop worrying about Palestine.
Like Bolivian theocratic fascists too. Like, I'm like,
yeah, they were big on that. It was annoying.
Yeah, and like, there's like they always like harken back, even like people like Nancy Pelosi, whose politics are completely like separate from like the sort of like New Deal era Democratic Party, still harken back to that party, which doesn't exist anymore. Like the sort of like social democratic like policies of the New Deal, which were mostly in the Democratic Party, but they're also liberal Republicans who like sort of adhered to them because the party system was sort of like more geographically based than anything else at the time. But like that only existed because we had like 40% unionization rates in that era. Like the material conditions produce that politics, not the other way around. Like people keep thinking that like, oh, we can like, just elect our way into a social democracy. And that's not true. Even if like, I mean, obviously I would prefer socialism, but I mean, like also I know people who have died because they don't have health insurance. Like social democracy would be fucking great compared to this. But it's like the, conditions that produce social democracy come from the bottom up. They do not come from the top down, and they never will.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is the issue of like libs, at least in the Bay Area. I've noticed is so many of them are like, oh, leftists and liberals are basically the same thing. Like we both like FDR. And I'm like, FDR is a compromiser. FDR was like the middle ground at the time.
Yeah.
I'm like,
he was saying he saved capitalism.
Yeah, he wanted to save capitalism.
Yeah, he was anti-communist.
Yeah, people to his left were like, let's have a 30-hour work week in like the 1920s. Like, was a compromise candidate, and he literally stated, like Mila said, the whole point was to save capitalism. Like, if we don't give them anything, they're gonna cut our heads off, like we saw in like the Soviet, like Russia and like the Soviet Union and stuff like that. It's like it irritates me. Like my biggest insult from like left-wing people or libs is like being called a lib myself, and I'm like, you can go fuck yourself. Like,
I know. I think that's the worst insult.
I've been called a revolutionary LARPer too, and I think that's really funny.
I've never been called a LARPer.
Yeah, I've been called a LARPer a few times. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. I'm wearing, I've got my costume on, so.
Yeah.
But
oh my god, I love that shirt. I like
Fox. Please show us the shirt in all its glory.
Eric got it for me.
I did.
Oh, I want one.
I feel like you can have like good aesthetics that are kind of left wing and not be cringe. Like, you know what I mean? Like some people just like do like the full on cringe of like left wing aesthetic. I don't think you know if I'm talking about like on Twitter, but like I post pictures of like left wing all the time, but like in a way that's like slightly ironic and like sexy. You know what I mean? Like it's not like I'm not too serious about any of it.
I mean, it's one thing to like wear a t-shirt or like have, some imagery, and then it's another to build your entire personal brand on social media off of a like communist aesthetic. And those people normally know very little about communism.
Well, I hate the like gun girls who are like, oh, my boobs are showing and I'm a sexy like
annoying.
I'm like that's not even about leftism. It's just like a brand. Like, cool. I could also make an OnlyFans where I wear like short shorts and like nothing and a gun. Like,
yeah, it's people like wearing like a full on like imitation like Soviet winter coat with like a big furry hat, and I'm like, baby, you live in Arkansas, like you burn it up. I know you are. Like, I mean, I honestly think like I think some of like the stuff is like sort of cool, like some of like the old like Soviet like art and like whatever, but I think that like I don't know, like American like communism, socialism, whatever, like American Marxism kind of needs its own aesthetic because we don't really have one.
Yeah.
Like China has theirs and like the Soviet Union has theirs, and we kind of just
well, it's because Susan Sontag ruined all of it. She's equated like the aesthetics of beauty and like a working class unity aesthetic as like equations to fascism. So like any attempt to like create a collective identity and like aesthetic is like to the liberal elites fascism, even if you mean it's like communism or anything.
Mila, do you have to go now?
Yeah, I gotta head out. I'm training early in the morning, and then I have a full day of school. And if I don't run before school, I'm gonna like be in a terrible mood all day. So
she's gonna stab someone for saying pimps are okay.
Yeah, I gotta get ready to talk about property, feudalism. So I gotta be very well rested for that. But yeah, thank you everyone for letting me interfere in your elections.
Thank you.
We need more interference.
To address the news.
Your stuff. Let our viewers know where they can find your stuff and read your tweets.
Everything's on the Twitter, but yeah, that my last name that substack is my blog. Subscribe to Unacceptable and Huge if True on your podcast platforms. The newspaper boy hats thing I have to address. Those are Trotskyists. Avoid them at all costs.
Yes.
What is it?
Fascist collaborators, all of them.
Wait, what's the newspaper hats?
Oh, the
Greg B.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I don't understand the reference, but if it has to do anything with Trotskyists, then they're all fascist collaborators and they all need to go away.
So
I think we're talking about my cute little hat here.
Oh, we have those two actually. So
they're a bit different.
yeah,
They're like usually kind of grayish. They're like an old man hat. Anyway, just be safe out there with the trots.
yeah, and the anarchist.
And the
They're definitely
anarchist.
trotting around.
Always keep your eyes.
Yeah, and lots of love, guys. So,
Trotskyists, and there's some great people on both sides.
Yeah, all sides matter.
All sides matter. Okay. All right, Mila, we love you so much.
Night, Mila.
Bye.
Guys, see you soon.
As the Maoist in the group, I feel like I need to condemn Trotskyism along with Mila.
Yes.
No, I'm against Trotskyism. Like the only one who's had like any sympathies towards Trotskyism that I know of was Gian in his teenage years, but like that's all there was in the left in his country of New Zealand. So I don't blame him.
Jean Kirkpatrick, who was like basically the woman who created like neoconservatism, or like one of them.
Oh yeah,
she was like Reagan's national security advisor, and like just a terrible. Yeah, she was a fucking Trotskyist or Trotskyite, and I read a book. I think she was still a Trotskyite when she wrote it. When I was doing a paper over like I was doing a comparative analysis of like the Argentine military junta and like the Uruguayan civil military dictatorship, which occurred like in the Dirty War era in South America around the same time. And so I had to read a lot about like Perón, and she had written a book about Peronism called The Charismatic Bond. And like her entire thesis is that like charismatic leaders produce fascism along with labor unions. And I was like,
yeah,
leave it to the trots to be like charisma causes fascism. The people who have no charisma whatsoever.
Well, I feel like the modern
jealous.
Someone asked like, what is Trotskyism? Like definition. The modern trots don't even agree with Trotsky anymore. They split with him because at least Trotsky was like, oh, it's a problematic worker states in the Soviet Union. Well, the other ones are like, no, the whole thing's just like horrible and we must destroy it. So I think modern day trots have literally nothing to do with Trotsky even anymore. Just I think many people who identify as Maoist, not Esperanza obviously, but like the like online 19-year-olds, literally I don't like know anything about Maoism and just take on identity and are probably more liberal than anything else. Like, I don't know. Do you agree with that, Esperanza? Like many, like Maoism's been a very popular thing. Like Marxist-Leninism adopted by like a lot of rad libs, and I'm like, you're neither of these identities. Like,
yeah, I mean, I think that like all of communist Twitter, everyone from like leftcom to MLs to MLMs, like a lot of them that are extremely active and even popular on Twitter are, you know, not, it's like we were talking about earlier, it's more of an aesthetic, you know, or something that they find cool to sort of appropriate. But on the Trotsky thing, you know, I do want to say that like one of the best and most dedicated organizers I know is a member of like a Trotsky faction and has been for, you know, I think over 10 years now.
Yeah.
But, you know, even like what's happening in the Philippines right now, you know, you have this like Trotskyite American academic attacking, you know, the party in the Philippines, an MLM party, and turning it into a line struggle between like Trotsky and Stalin.
Yeah.
And I feel like that happens a lot.
Well, I feel like
I agree. See, most of the stuff I hear whenever I see Trotsky, there's always some people fighting about Trotsky and Stalin, and like that's all they want to talk about is like whose version of history is correct. And find that really frustrating because we've had like literally a century of propaganda, and they're dead.
Yeah.
They're fucking dead, and people are dying now. And these guys died a while ago. So I understand when people want to talk like theory and stuff like that. Like, to be completely honest, sometimes that shit goes right over my head, and I'm just like, how is this going to get me healthcare right now?
Same. No, I agree with you actually. Because like to me, it's like I haven't read a lot of this stuff. I'm like who cares? Like if like people want to bring up like the Holodomor or whatever, I'm like, I don't care. Like that doesn't literally has no impact on my life and material conditions in the modern world. People want to like be trapped in like the tanky label is a great example of this. Like the tanky label arose in the Euro communist attacking those who sided the Soviet Union during the like intervention in Hungary. It's like, who the fuck cares? Like the tanky label is just a smear now. It has nothing to do with any of this because liberals learned a new slur.
Yeah.
Like,
right. And I just think it's just, I mean, first of all, we have to know like what actually happened.
Yeah.
First of all, Stalin didn't do what all these Trotskyites and far right historians have to say. These anti-communist historians have to say about him.
Yeah.
So like all those things like Holodomor and Stalin didn't do that. And
there's real critiques though of Stalin, but like.
I mean,
yeah,
like,
there
a lot of like minority populations, like across, like he deported a bunch of like random like minorities, in like certain like the Koreans, like some of like the Tatars and like stuff to like Central Asia, and like did not planned out well. A lot of people like died and stuff. Like you can criticize like Stalin and still recognize that like he basically turned like one defeated the Nazis and two like turned like Russia from basically like an agrarian peasant society into like an industrial powerhouse in like 20 years.
Well,
like both of those things can be true. And you also have to recognize like the Soviet Union like did not end until like the 1990s. Like, it did not end with Stalin. And in fact, like its heyday was well after Stalin's death. Like if you think about like when the Soviets were like putting like, people in space and like, really actually being able to provide, food and like housing and everything for everyone. Like a lot of that happened during the Khrushchev era, which everybody thinks Khrushchev was a clown, but I mean, he actually,
I hate Khrushchev.
Yeah, Khrushchev did a lot of like
shit. Yeah, Khrushchev was a liar. No, Khrushchev is a liar, and he is trash in my opinion. But what I'm saying is that what
I just want to say on the Tatar stuff, the Crimean Tatars, people don't recognize that during World War II, the Crimean Tatar population sided with the Nazis and helped execute genocide of local populations. So the reason they were moved was because of like they didn't want to create like inter-ethnic conflicts in the region when like who helped execute your family, so they moved them. And to say that was like the best option, but it's like I think people misinterpret the history where the reality is.
Right, and I think the important thing is like we need to acknowledge that the only theories and practices that have worked have been Marxist-Leninists and Maoist ones when they're applied to the material conditions. So I don't know. I don't know why people try to defend or label themselves as Trotskys or anarchists, because none of their shits have ever worked.
What is like China's modern?
Don't tell the anarchists that.
What?
But
how would you guys? Because like like I said before, like I did my undergrad in international studies, but I mostly wound up just taking a bunch of history classes, and I never really like paid all that. My like specialty was more like Latin America, so I really didn't pay that much attention to like China and stuff like that. But like, what would y'all describe their sort of modern ideology? Because it's definitely not Maoism anymore. I mean,
you mean like current China?
I mean, maybe officially, but like in practice, it's really not. It seems like what they're doing seems sort of similar to maybe like the NEP, where they're like, they're allowing capitalism to exist because you have to have capitalism before you can have communism. Like you have to, it has to, develop the sort of means of production, which like seems all very like orthodox Marxism to me, but I'm kind of wondering what you guys think.
So like my views changed a lot, but I think my current view is I don't think China in the current stage is in the stage of socialism, but I still think it's under the like control of Marxist, Leninist. I think they're kind of acknowledging they need to have a quick capitalist phase to then lead into socialism. But I don't think it's socialism anymore because they've allowed a capitalist class to emerge.
But don't you have to do that?
I don't agree with that.
Production. I mean, like, don't you have to? I mean, I guess you don't have to because the NEP was very short-lived and like Stalin mostly did it all through like state planning. But like, isn't the traditional Marxist stance because of course, like Marx believed that like the revolutions would happen in like the industrialized countries like Germany, the UK, whatever, France. Like, doesn't that seem sort of in line with Marxist thought that like they would sort of allow this capitalist class to exist to like create like the production capabilities needed to provide for the society under like a sort of like party tutelage?
I don't mean my point as like a slight to China. I think
I know, but like
I think there's a very important like the stage, like maybe they're like in a sense stage of like social like democracy or whatever, social populism. But like I don't think in a stage of like socialism where the entire economy is like working class controlled, I don't think they're in that stage at this current point. But I think at least I want to hope they're moving towards there. I know in their recent 5-year plan release, they said they're going to nationalize more of the industry again. But I don't know. I have no idea. Like,
I mean, I'm going to agree with Greg B on this one. I think there is definitely the dictatorship of the proletariat in place there, and I think we know that socialism, there's still going to be like a capitalist. It's not a stateless society. That's what communism is. So we're going to have those elements, and we're going to have to deal with the material conditions, and we need to adapt to them. So we need to still utilize them. So that's what socialism is, and I think it's applied and it looks differently depending on the material conditions. And I would say I would really argue that China is socialist.
Okay.
I mean, look what it's done in like 20 years. It's lifted over 800 million people out of poverty. That's incredible.
I totally agree that they've lifted so like they're far better than like the free market capitalist state of like much of the West.
Well, can I ask one more question because I'm about to go?
Okay.
Esperanza, since you're our token Maoist, do you still sort of see like a Maoist sort of strain in like modern CCP thought, or no? Is it mostly gone now?
No. So, I mean, as a MLM, you could probably guess, I would argue that, Deng got into power because of a coup and initiated capitalist restoration, and that the Communist Party now, in the words of, one communist leader that I know, is an aberration of what it once was. And, on that, I would just say that if you want to understand that line of thinking more, there's this author called Pao Yu-Ching who has 2 books out with foreign language press. One is called Rethinking Socialist Transition. The other is called From Victory to Defeat. And it pretty much lays out very clearly the Maoist argument that China is no longer socialist. That being said, though, a lot of what we hear about China in the US, I recognize like unequivocally as just pure propaganda.
Agreed.
All right. Well, I got to go, guys, but it was fun hanging out, and I'll see you later.
Bye, River.
Bye.
More shirtless pictures, please.
Hope you feel better.
Oh, I'm not. I'm COVID free. Yeah.
Oh, yay.
Yay.
Finally. All right. See you guys.
Was that
Bye.
your celebratory photo? Okay. Bye.
Oh yeah, it was.
Yeah. Like, I feel like for me, I've been reading more about Enver Hoxha and stuff, which may push my fan. Also, like Michael Parenti's book is like some critiques of China's transition.
Which one? Which book?
Black Shirts and Reds.
Oh yeah, I'm reading that now too.
Yeah. To me, regardless, like I think siding with China from a critical standpoint is the perspective I've always held. Because I think I have my critiques of China, but I also think we need to support them against American imperialism.
Right. China's the future, and so is all of Asia, in my opinion.
But I think also, in a sense, there is a soft imperialist perspective of the small capitalist class of China that we also need to be skeptical of, because I mean, there is 5 military bases outside of China now, and I think that's something to question.
Yeah, this is where I very strongly disagree, because they might have military bases, but they didn't invade those countries, and they didn't force them to give up resources after they planted those military bases there.
No, I think we should always have a skepticism of.
Yeah. I hear what you're saying, but it's nowhere near to the capacity that, we have 800 military bases all over the world, and the only countries, the only neocolonial powers in Africa right now, especially Africa, are the U.S. and Canada. And
there's a base of China in Djibouti.
But they're not a colonial power. They're not like.
But I think we still need to recognize the relations of capital influence in these policy agreements between countries. Like, there's never it never ignores the relations of material conditions and capital. So I think in those cases we should always be skeptical, but like it's clearly nowhere to the same extent of American.
No, I was skeptical at first, and the more I looked into it, the more I was like, oh well, they're just like building trains and roads and then they're leaving. How's that colonialism? Like, that's not fucking colonialism. There was one article a friend sent me. We went back and forth on this issue, and she was very adamant that China was neocolonial, and she sent me this this article which had a bunch of errors in it. Like whoever wrote that, their first like you could tell that a non-native English speaker wrote it, and I don't know, I don't remember the source. So but I appreciate that it was in English, because I think it was like an African media source. I don't really remember, but it kind of it talked about racism between Africans and Chinese people. And I was like, this is not colonialism, because these workers have then now left. They have left. They go back home. They're not like permanently living there. I mean, they don't have a colony there. And then another article she sent me was about this port. I don't remember what country. God, this was like a year and a half ago. And she was like, oh, this, China's going to take control over the port. And I was like, it's a port, and they're going to give it back in 10 years. That doesn't sound like colonialism to me.
Well, I think there's
sounds like a lease.
There's a distinguish between colonialism and imperialism. It's one's like the occupation of one inhabitant to another, versus like imperialism, where it's like the expansion of capitalist markets beyond a sovereign national boundary. And I think it's a distinction between the two, but like for China and other countries to grow, there is a necessary requirement to expand markets beyond national boundaries.
Yeah, and they in the current fact that they like spent on building the port, and like I get it, but I was like, I don't know how they're calling it.
I wouldn't call it neocolonialism. I wouldn't say that at all.
Yeah, this was after Hillary Clinton made comments about China was being neocolonial, and I was like, when did China? First of all, neocolonialism. When did China ever have a colony in Africa? And stupid, no. So that right there, just like kind of like.
It's loud.
Sorry.
Well, we just have to, like, as Marxists, as Maoists, as Marxist-Leninists, we always have to be critical.
Yeah.
But also we also need to realize that imperfect socialism will always be better than capitalism.
Right.
And I would never say China is colonial or imperialist in any way, shape, or form.
What about you, Esperanza? What would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I would argue again that, imperialism is about the development of monopoly capital. Right. And I think that China, I would argue that, China has provided space for monopoly capital to expand and has joined in the world of imperialism. And, again, for me, I'm also around a lot of like comrades who are from the Philippines, and so they do see China as imperialist, maybe not in like the same way that, well, of course not in the same way that, the US has been imperialist. But also, again, right, I'm an MLM and that's sort of our political line. And again, I would really encourage folks to read Pao Yuqing.
Yeah. Do we think?
Yeah, no. I mean, speaking to that point, I think that's where I would be like critical. Giving weapons to that regime that's something I haven't really explored yet. But like
Sudan's a good example.
Just off of hearing that, then that's something that's.
And they helped arm the Mujahideen against the Soviet Union. So
who would do that? Who would do such a thing, Fox?
Yeah. People like it's whenever I take like a stance that questions the narrative and mildly or even critically supports China, people just automatically assume I don't know or care about.
Yeah. Well, so the interesting thing I feel like about the China discussion is that our version of geopolitics ever since basically like somebody like Teddy Roosevelt in the US has been based on the idea of these muscular nations just being swole at each other and just doing some toxic masculinity in each other's directions. It doesn't explain anything.
Yeah.
It's if you were to conceive of every nation as a terrified school child sort of quaking in their oversized shoes, then suddenly shit makes more sense. It's there's a fundamental deep insecurity that fuels the sort of the bourgeois leadership of every nation state, in that they know just how insecure you do not rise to that position of power without understanding exactly how tenuous your grasp on that power is and how contingent it is upon people not noticing how unfair and unjust and how ill-gotten it all is. And so unfortunately, I think China suffers from a kind of similar syndrome. And I'm not trying to do a sort of an immaterial sort of pop psychology analysis on nation states. It's not really my bag. But I mean, China is terrified about invasion, about being violated. And it kind of manifests in a bunch of odd ways in the same way that it does for every country. And so I think critical support is the right vein, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you have to be, because you're surrounded by imperialist powers that want to overthrow you.
Sure, but the U.S. is the same. I mean, the U.S. foreign policy as the U.S. as the bully of the world, the policeman of the world, is sort of it's an explanatory narrative until it runs out of explanatory power. The fact that the U.S. the U.S. foreign policy is the manifest psychosis and neuroses of the ruling class, sort of explains so much about why would we do all this shit that's honestly just not really in our interest.
Yeah, but they're...
Sorry, good.
Yeah, but I think there's a difference between the U.S.
Oh yeah,
for their reasons and purposes versus China's. I mean, China has the global masses in mind. In my opinion,
I'm definitely not trying to equate the psychosis. It's only to say that China has a very real and legitimate fear of invasion, or basically becoming an imperial subject.
Yeah.
And so much of how they're motivated in their actions and their orientation to the world is based on avoiding that, right? In the same way that the US is terrified of its declining prestige.
Like, I think when it comes to, I think regardless of your viewpoint, if China's still in the socialist phase, I think Marxist-Leninism kind of still shows it's important to support like the governments of those fighting imperialist insurrection. Like I support controversial
Iran.
I support Iran, and like I support Syria's government over the insurrection government, because one's imperialist, and for one, I don't want like Islamists taking over Syria.
God, I hope to send the drone to just. I hope they're good enough at targeting drones over to that side of the table.
Esperanza has to dip soon, so let's give her a cute send off, and then we can continue talking about this for a little bit if you want. Esperanza, tell our viewers where, if anyone is still watching, where they can find your work and follow you.
Yeah, so you could find it on @NClassSociety on Twitter. And the only thing I just wanted to end with about this whole China discussion, sorry, I just had to get one last comment in. It's just that a lot of another thing is that, during the Democratic debates, one of the biggest things was how are you going to get, China on board if you ever achieve this Green New Deal or any environmental policies. But actually most of the emissions produced by China, are released because of commodity production for the US and the West. So it's the US's problem. Bye, everyone.
Period.
Yep.
Bye. Love you, darling.
Bye, Esperanza.
Oh, what a cutie. I love her so much.
Yeah.
Love her.
Yeah,
I can't say how much I love her.
Yeah. I think she made a great point though. So many of the smears on China are just unfounded, or often just end products of.
Well, right. I mean, we're just, the empire needs to project itself. We're projecting all of our shit onto our enemy states, which are all socialist, pretty much, like DPRK, China, Cuba, Vietnam.
Well, China's so specific, right? Because Cuba, our relation and the relation of our capitalist class to Cuba does not resemble that with China. I mean, China is a weird case because they are the world's productive capacity now.
Yeah.
And that was done not against the will of our ruling class. That was done with their consent and support and actual financial backing in many cases.
Mm-hmm.
And so we find ourselves in a situation where, yes, we're very happy to sort of make all the problems of capitalism their problems. Yes, it leads to horrible conditions. Yes, it leads to environmental.
But they're also
destruction.
fighting back against the importation of the U.S. and Europe's capitalist inefficiencies, where like Vietnam and China will no longer take the recycled goods of the West because they no longer want to be like the pollution capitals. And the reality is most of the pollution is from like Africa and Asia, but it's often shipped from Europe and the West to these countries because they have lax regulations.
Yeah,
because they often have right-wing state or
pollution so that
Yeah.
And
it's like we blame them for like, how dare you put all this plastic in the ocean? But like, it's American and like European plastics being sent there. It's not their plastics. Like,
well, I found it hard to get a decent cup of coffee in Beijing.
Really?
Yeah, so I think we should destroy China. I think global thermonuclear war is the only
I love how
solution.
you do that. You just like you start saying something really serious, and then you just like pull the rug out from under my feet. And
welcome to Twink Revolution. There's no brothels, I've learned, in Beijing. So clearly
Then we have to go start one.
An awful right.
There's oppression. That's oppressive. I'm sorry. I feel oppressed.
We should all have OnlyFans. That's the truest
needs to be
liberation.
overthrown.
China's class perfectionist.
Yeah.
They're not centering sex worker voices in their discourse.
Yeah, I think it's always good to have a critical view of every country, because like we can always do better. Like I think the reality is like I want better for China, just the way I want better for like the pink tide countries in South America, where like they didn't impose like a worker proletarian dictatorship. Like they still have, in some ways, a liberal democracy system where there is a chance of right-wing power reclaiming things through power. And I'm like, why would you do that? Like fucking seize those powers. You have it. Just take it. Like there's a reason like
Lenin to the Soviet in 1917.
Like Allende died because he was doing a Marxism from like liberal democratic means. Like you got murdered in the end.
He was getting murdered.
But it doesn't. But it's better if you just like quickly just like seize the power for the workers and just get rid of the opposition. Like I don't like murder them. I'm like just like crack down on
Gulag
them. Yeah. Fuck them. You know what I mean? Like there's always flaws in every single system whenever I think you deviate, and we should be aware of that. But also these countries are always still victims of violence, so they deserve our critical support nonetheless.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And again, like China, it's, international solidarity, they, extend to all those countries.
Right.
And is yet another example to me is why, China's socialism.
Yeah.
And, and I just don't think they wouldn't be where they are without the solidarity with China, Cuba, and all the other socialist states as well.
Of course.
I mean,
the problem is, and this is, I'm gonna like veer into shitty territory here, but only in like accusations usually leveled against people when I talk about class, but then say, a personal racism against East Asian people in the West is not a new thing, and people are readily primed to do an anti-China political statement based on literal personal racism against Chinese people, and I don't say that lightly.
They don't know that they're being racist. They think they're not being racist,
right?
And so I always go back to that example of Kamala Harris in the debates, and she's like, "We've got to deal with China," and so then liberals are like thinking it's a big issue that they got to deal with China because they're untrustworthy, and they're just rehashing yellow scare politics from the 40s and 50s, and it's fucking exhausting. It's exhausting.
Yes, and people try to redirect and say, "Oh, well, actually, it's the CCP."
Well, it's even more.
The CCP has what 90 million members.
90.
No, I think it's about 90 million members.
90 million, yeah.
It's 1 in 10, 1 in 11, or whatever in China, basically that old. So members of the CCP.
Like once you get closer to like liberal democracies, closer to China, like Australia or New Zealand, like even it increases in like, I think at least for us, like we think, well, what's your view on China? Like what do you think they're good? And it's like, why is this relevant?
But keep in mind that personal racism against Chinese people is the same as the kind of Donald Trump, like they're not sending not sending us their best kind of rhetoric. That's what for Australia and New Zealand, it's just anti-immigrant rhetoric because it's a majority of immigration comes from East Asia.
Yeah.
And I want to add to that like our media is so good at homogenizing the Chinese populace, and they've got like the average American thinking that they're all Han Chinese people, and that like there's just a few ethnic minorities that are being genocided by the Han Chinese, and that's not true. There's what 53, 54 ethnic groups in China, not even minorities, like fully fledged ethnic groups, and so when liberals they'll talk about the Chinese, and they're making everyone in China Han Chinese. They're the ones genociding other ethnic groups in China.
Well, they just released a report saying that the Uyghur population's actually increased in the last year in China.
Yeah,
they're doing forced breeding camps now.
If you're doing genocide, like you wouldn't have an increase in population. Also, like they always make it into a Muslim thing, like there is like the Uyghur population, who's also like a much larger Muslim population in China, isn't being affected by any of the policies. Like there's clearly a much broader discussion that none of the Western media has ever explained about the numerous Wahhabist Uyghur terrorist attacks, or how the Uyghur population, youth are being recruited to go to Turkey and Syria and now Azerbaijan and Libya. And it's like, these aren't just like regular people, like they're being radicalized to do terrorism, and they've like massacred like thousands of people, if not tens of thousands of people over the world. Like,
well, sorry, Greg B in the chat, I just noticed is pointing out the minority groups in China were not subjected to the one-child policy.
It was only Han Chinese because they like outnumbered the rest of the ethnic groups, and they wanted.
Period.
I love Greg B, by the way.
Yeah, Greg B. Who are you? Do we know you?
Yeah.
Are you Twink Rev listener? Yeah, and how big is it?
Yeah. From 9 to 12 inches, how big is it? No, I'm just kidding.
On a scale of.
No, but it's right. Like I think people don't recognize, for like the ethnic minorities in China, there were policy exemptions, like the one-child policy, or like for Muslims, they get state-funded trips to I don't remember the place is called, the Kaaba, the Hajj. They get state-funded trips to the Hajj, which is like the religious trip for Muslim people. It's like, why would you do that if you're trying to like genocide them? Like, that's not what you would do, like, as a country.
Right.
Like, I'm not to say like maybe there's not issues within the re-education like facilities, but like we don't know. Like we have literally no. I've never been there.
We can think that the incarceration of people is bad.
There's issues in like nursing homes in America. It's like
you can walk and chew gum at the same time.
Yeah,
you don't have to do uncritical support. It's just simply saying, might not be turns out nobody asked me about these, and I was not consulted on the exact operation of this particular political act.
But I think in the end, like I think there is an importance to de-radicalization of religious extremists, and it turns out much of the liberal West agrees. France is also having re-education camps for like Muslim extremists, but we don't hear about that in the news.
And what you need to do is you need to send your military in to the Middle East. And we need to just pay, about like just take pallets full of billions of dollars and just hand them out without asking where they're going. That is the way to solve.
Yeah, the Mujahideen.
Yeah. Well, no. I mean, this is the Iraq invasion.
Yeah.
What you want to do is just make sure that you have no financial controls on the billions of dollars of cash you just hand out to random locals.
Yeah.
Anybody who turns up wanting to sell anybody else out, give them money. It's fine. It's great.
All right, guys, I think we should wrap. I think we did a good job covering that, whatever we just watched for an hour and a half.
Shit show. This Stroke Fest 2020.
Yeah, I know. Our live stream should just replace the debate.
Yeah.
Honestly.
It was trash. It was failed state trash.
0 dick shots throughout the whole thing.
I didn't see a single dick today. Yeah, I'm not happy happy about that.
They should have worked. Where's the
It was
grace?
all
button?
micro penises anyway.
That's probably true.
Wait, this is your YouTube stream, right? Not ours?
But like
What?
This is
what?
your YouTube stream, not ours, right?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Flip it out.
Penis.
Getting it out.
Yeah.
What would you say, Fox?
Nothing. I said nothing about micro penises.
So we're excited to see you guys next week.
What?
Yes. Oh my god, I'm so excited.
Yeah, it's a Twinkrev X Red Lettuce live.
Yeah, we'll be on Bellamy Studios.
Featuring John Cody.
Yeah.
Oh my god, yes.
Yes, Cocky Boys presents.
Should we end this?
I met Cocky Boys at a gay museum in Berlin. It was really cool. They signed my DVD.
Aww.
Where is it? I've never watched it, but I have it.
You ever watched it? Oh my god.
No, I know. It was free too.
Ew.
I won it in a rap battle.
Sounds like communism.
Yeah, altruism is the debasement of the human soul.
Porn for all.
Oh, hi, Rosie. I love you. Aw.
Oh, Rosie.
You can hit me up anytime, my love.
Same here.
Time for you.
All right, y'all. We love you. Have a good night.
Bye.
Good night.
Subscribe to the Red Lettuce and Twink Revolution, and we will see you all again soon. And we're all going to do our monthly live stream this coming month.
Yes.
Yeah, that'll be in October.
More Marxists than you can handle, y'all.
Yeah.
Love you. Good night, friends.
Good night. Thank you for having
I
us.
love you.
Bye.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us.